Grand Rising, y'all. Hope everyone's doing well this rising. Peace to the panel.
Peace. Grand Rising, everyone.
Happy Friday. Grand Rising, everybody.
Everyone in the chat, please do me a favor and show us some ones if we're coming through loud and clear and you can hear us. To make sure the volumes are right.
1 2 1 2.
Mic checker, microphone checker.
Mic check. 2 2 1 2. 2 2 1 2.
Coming in loud and clear.
That's what's up.
Chiki.
Ruh-roh already. But before y'all start cutting up, let me go ahead and get the greetings in there. Before I get in trouble. Grand Rising Oak Cliff. Grand Rising David Corey. Grand Rising Copper Color Queen. Grand Rising I Am Flying Squirrel. Grand Rising LJ Free. Grand Rising Doodle Vision. Hopefully you'll be able to come up in here this rising, bro. Grand Rising Michael Robinson. Grand Rising Alton Clay. Making sure I don't miss anybody.
That's AKA Swarth Vader.
Swarth Vader. Oh yeah, that's right. Swarth Vader. Grand Rising Celestial Love. Grand Rising to all those out there that are listening. And you don't normally participate in the chat, but you take this information and you use it to help your community and your relatives. Grand Rising Copper Chopper 803.
What it do?
Grand Rising to the new subscribers out there.
Peace.
Yeah. David Corey says Tawny Tim. we actually have a funny chat. They have great sense of humor.
Absolutely. Told you, best chat ever. I wasn't playing.
Michael Robinson says, I'm just gonna leave this here. They ain't Franks neither. Saying no more. Alright, Michael. Alright, so let me go ahead and do this public service announcement. And then we'll do a quick recap. And then we'll go in here first. Again, I want to give a shout out to the owners of the website realhistorywww.com. They are seriously dropping some megatime bombs when it comes to this information. I always want to make sure we cite our sources, especially when it's sources like these. Individuals that are tirelessly doing the work and citing sources, and also links to the books where they're getting their information. So shout out to the owners of realhistorywww.com.
Much respect.
So let's do this public service announcement, shall we? Of course, I would have that. Really?
I don't know, just sounds appropriate at the moment. Don't know why.
It kind of did.
And of course, you would co-sign.
It kind of did.
Of course.
Kinda.
Mm-hmm. So this episode of the Cab Grand Rising Show, from the Dark Ages, French Jacobites, is brought to you by Australian Assembly, where the real work is done. Australian Assembly is the gathering of the minds that do the work. That is the etymology of the word. So who are we? This information can be found on our website at tactinusassembly.com/about. We are a non-profit organization dedicated to raising up Indigenous Americans' voices by using genealogy, also known as family history, which is the study of families and the tracing of their lineage and history. Genealogists use oral interviews, historical records, genetic analysis, and other records to obtain information about a family and to demonstrate kinship and pedigree of its members. Our core values are the foundation of our company, which is essential to our success and serve as a lens through which we evaluate every business decision. Those core values are, but are not limited to, integrity, which is knowing and doing what is right; respect, which is treating others the way you want to be treated; responsibility, which is embracing the opportunities to contribute; and servant leadership, which is serving the common good. For those of you who are now tuning in for the first time or sporadically tune in and don't know what we're about, we have one main mission, and that's to help you do your genealogy, and if you should choose, tie back into your tribe. We are not insinuating, intimating, or hinting that you should tie back into your tribe or that you have to tie back into your tribe. But what we have found is that it's one of the best solutions to finding out who you are, so you'll know where you'll be able to start. Our other mission is to help you to become financially independent and help you have financial success, not only for your immediate family and relatives, but also, if you should choose, your community and your tribe. We're not here to tell you who you are. We're not claiming that everyone is an American Indian, Native American. We're not claiming that everyone comes from Africa. We're not claiming everyone is a Huguenot. We're not doing any of those things. What we're telling you is that if you do your genealogy, you'll find out who you are, because only you can tell yourself who you are. Don't let anybody tell you who you are. Get the facts and get the proof. We're also here to provide exposure, and everything that we do here is to help you unlock those doors, remove those barriers to doing your genealogy and find out who your ancestors are. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the panel as I help us get set up for this rising show. Panel, take it away. Nope. Okay, don't take it away. Keep it. Grown folks, wrong show.
No, we covered everything.
That's good. Oh, make sure y'all visit the forum. Our chat is back up, so you'll be able to chat with us and one another at autochthonsassembly.com/community. I'm sorry, go ahead, Bones.
Did you personally email
chat?
Pamela Hall?
You can chat with the community from any page of the website. So any page you're on the website, if you're watching Ain't TV, listening to the radio station, you can still be in the chat with the rest of the community.
It is chat friendly. Grand Rising, Jay Susquehanna.
Peace, Jay. What it do? Do at it again. I'm gonna start looking in the chat.
Say what? Oh, yeah. Doodle Vision is going in.
It said Huguenot, Argonaut, astronaut, Windsor or not.
To not or not.
Connect the knots.
To Huguenot. So, we had the opportunity to go over Bacon's Rebellion. And it was quite eye-opening for me, being that we covered Bacon's Rebellion earlier in our segments before we had the information and knowledge that we have now. Doodle Vision says, well, we know who the Chinese agents are. They send secret messages crying and then the website crashes. It must be Friday, y'all. It must be Friday. So, like I was saying about the...
Yeah, it's only 21 minutes in.
I know, Bacon's Rebellion. It was eye-opening. And just to see how this stuff ties in, that's what did it for me. Like, the work that has been done, the work that everyone has been doing, not just on this channel, but other channels. The work that's being contributed is starting to tie in. And thanks again to Jay for sending in those links to those books. Hopefully people had the opportunity to start reading them. So again, say thanks to Jay Sasquan. Appreciate you, bro.
Thank you, Jay.
And those who haven't, the free bookstore / library will be back up on the site this Saturday. So if you haven't, get the book, read it. It'll be there with a lot of other books we done came across as well. Dig it.
Mm-hmm.
All living things grow.
So this rising, we're going to be covering the Jacobite gleanings from the state manuscripts. And we're going to be talking about... What?
Jacob done bit somebody. What?
No.
Just a little icebreaker. I'm done.
No.
That's how rumors get started. Cab show, Jacob bit somebody. You hear about that?
Mm-hmm.
Don't do that.
We don't know who Jacob is, but he bit somebody though.
Yes, I knew he was a biter. I never met him.
Is he related to Cain? You heard Cain ate Abel, right? Cannibal? Just ask a question.
His silence means that we can keep going.
James, help.
He broke his silence.
Yes, I had to. I'm posting the links. I'm going to be starting with Jacobite gleanings from the state manuscript, and I'm also putting in the link to the actual book. I don't know if this book has been cleansed. What I mean by cleansed means taking on anything that will lead you to the area being swarthy. So,
You know we're gonna break it on down.
let's see. Alright, it's time for the warnings, y'all. Y'all know where we at. And y'all know what time it is, and y'all know what we do. So let's get it in.
Warning, warning, warning. Hard hats, pickaxe, shovels, boots required.
You heard her. Get your gear on. Don't want anybody to be hit by falling debris. Alright. David Course says in earplugs, remember them. Well, David, if you get the earplugs, then you won't be able to hear us. But, okay.
What'd you say?
We got them Bluetooth earplugs.
Bluetooth.
Huh?
Speakers
Can't hear
on.
you. Still can't hear you. What?
See, David, see what you started. I'm blaming you.
The whole world was mostly swarthy.
The whole world.
The whole world. Forget it. Take your earplugs out.
What? We finna go see Dorothy. What?
Don't.
See, here we go. Telephone game. Here we go again.
Alton Clay says, someone said yesterday that if you eat pork, you'll have Bacon's Rebellion. I love it. Yeah, that was hot.
I like that.
Doodle Vision said, 4/5 swarthy. General Vic swarthy. Grand Rising, Big Hawk. Grand Rising.
Peace.
Sure I ain't missing nobody. So y'all ready to get it in?
Like we do by this time.
Grand Rising, Carrie Bay.
Carrie.
What up, Terry? We still waiting on. Yeah, we still waiting on that guest appearance. You don't gotta say much. Just come up here and be like, Just one time.
Like only you can.
Yep. That's gonna be the Carrie Bay special. Somebody coming up here acting wrong, giving that Carrie Bay special.
He said
I'm
he
done.
couldn't.
With some chiwis and a cold cut.
Oh, wow. So no sellout. Are you reading or am I reading first?
Mic check.
I'll read first.
I'm gonna be driving in a second.
Oh, okay, yeah. That you will not be able to read. Don't do that. Don't do that.
I can
Don't.
drive.
No. You can't. You no.
Okay.
You could. Not get me in trouble with nobody. It's not gonna happen today. Not today, buddy. No, we are good to go. And with that,
Nobody.
David Gore says, "Mic check." He was speaking low like that on purpose, David.
Yeah,
It's Friday. If we ain't talking like Indian, don't take us 100% serious, you know. We do got sense of humor over here.
Yeah.
Oh, Doodle is still going in. He said Jacobite's bite-sized candies. I quit. Anyway.
Michael Robinson said, "Eat pig, die with pig's feet, or eat pork, die with pig's feet."
Oh no.
See. You know what?
You hoofing it?
Alone. Leave it alone.
Okay.
Woof.
Just leave it alone. Woo.
Oh, it's Friday.
Yes, we need to close it. We need to close the shenanigans door. Closing the shenanigans door.
I thought you were saying close the show. I was about to say it's 8:30. It's already time.
Roll credits.
Cutting up. Let me get in this chat and roll these credits. TMH ready to go, y'all.
That is not what I
We're
said.
gonna let you read. Okay, we're gonna let you read. I'm gonna calm down.
Thank you.
I ain't even started yet.
So, with that being said, thank you for bearing with me, chat. There are excerpts from the book that's on this page. And it goes on to read, he says there are also pertinent pages from the book in the specific subject area. He says below are excerpt pages from the book which tend to illuminate the racist lies created by what they call the albinos, i.e. no black Britons, no black royals, no black Europeans, blacks in America are Africans, etc. So I'm going to read some of these pages so you'll have a pretty good understanding of how this happened. Now remember, this is after the last Jacobite uprising, and they started to send the last, I think it was couple of thousand Jacobites that were defeated to the Americas. They sent them straight here. This was in the 1700s, mid 1700s, as a matter of fact. It says, this is chapter 3. It says, the colonies and plantations, a dumping ground for prisoners. The colonization movement, rebels asked for by American governor as soldiers transport contract. It says, among the allotted were 180 who had drawn the blank lot at Carlisle, 72 at York, 73 at Lancaster, 34 at Lincoln, 34 at Chester, and 430 at Tilbury. And in the following transports on the Thames, Liberty and Property, Thames, James and Mary Pamela, and the sloop Furnace. These were the figures in September and October 1746, and Captain Eyre was instrumental in getting them all quietly to petition for transportation, for which he was thanked by His Grace the Duke of Newcastle. The colonies and plantations had been for some time back the dumping ground for undesirables of all kinds, convicts, state criminals, whether political or religious, rebels, suspects, malcontents, fanatics, and deserters. Dr. Robert Chambers states that after the Restoration, a Royal Fishery Company with a capital of, I guess, 25,000, whatever that is in French money, sterling was stated as a rival to the Dutch, and that amongst the most notable uses for shipping in the reign of the restored Stuart were privateering against the Dutch and the transporting of poor people to Barbados and of discontented West Country Presbyterians to the American colonies. Hold on. So at this time in 1746, the American colonies were used as a dumping ground for criminals, malcontents, and all these people.
It's interesting that it's saying discontented. So basically, if they weren't happy with the way things were going in their country of origin, they would get dumped in one of these prison colonies.
Well, you gotta
I guess that does make sense because of the Indians. They did the exact same thing here. Anytime they felt like you were stirring up too much trouble, they put you on a boat and shipped you somewhere. So I guess it does make sense.
Yeah, because
discontent.
Yeah, but they also call them undesirables. So they're giving you a list of all of the potential undesirables. They say convicts, state criminals, whether political or religious. So the political part would be the nobilities, the nobles, right? Or people, or the commoners that were taken prisoners because they were fighting on behalf of the Stuart royalty, or those that would be considered Jacobites.
Mm-hmm.
But then you also have to take into consideration there were probably, as they usually are, those that were neutral. They just wanted to live, but because they had swarthy or tawny skin, they got sent here as well.
Right.
Give them the boot.
So everyone got lumped in and sent to two specific places in 1747. And it goes on to read of the different types of undesirables: rebels, suspects. Now, a suspect is someone that you think is suspicious of committing a crime or doing something and you don't have any proof. That's why they're labeled a suspect. They also have malcontents, fanatics, and deserters. So these are the people that they sent over here to colonize the Americas.
Is that why they gave us forts? Because they sent a bunch of fanatics? I'm just saying, though.
Goodness gracious. Makes you wonder.
So you're going to send a bunch of angry people. Mm-hmm. Exactly, Bones. You're going to send a bunch of angry people over here to deal with Indians who are trying to be helpful. As we talked about yesterday, the Susquehanna got attacked because of the daggone the dough egg. They couldn't find the dough egg, so they attacked the Susquehanna. That was dumb.
Right.
Hey, you look like that dude that I'm looking for. Come here.
That's crazy. So
they're basically emptying their prisons. Anybody that they feel is undesirable, unworthy, or is not towing, quote unquote, the company line, you gotta go.
Well, that right there would tell you that a lot of the swarthy nobility would have been shipped out from those regions just based off that statement alone. Because again, they were taking over. They didn't want them there. Then the next step they start doing was lightening up all their pictures.
Yeah.
Iconoclasm.
Says transporting the poor people to Barbados and of discontented West Country Presbyterians to the American colonies. So the Presbyterians, the West Country Presbyterians, so these are a specific group of Presbyterians that they sent to the American colonies. Says I know, right? He says he adds an interesting fact that it was not till 11 years after the Union that Scotland sent her first ship across the Atlantic, and that in the West, owing to the development of the American colonies, the national progress was greater than in the other parts of Scotland. Check that out. It says a valuable publication referring to an earlier century's immigrants with an E, and including those whose passengers were assisted by the government of the day, is that by John Camden Houghton, London, 1874, entitled Original List of Persons of Quality, Immigrants, Religious, Exiles, Political Rebels, and others who, let's see, that's page 43, that's page 40. He didn't put down 44, so obviously it didn't match what he was trying to say. But that's the title of a book. Original list of persons of quality, immigrants, religious, exiles, political rebels, and others. And also on this, in this page, there's a manifest or a list of individuals, and it tells you their color. So, Doodle Vision says 92% of Barbados is colored. So, who were the criminals sent there again?
Ain't that something?
Perspective.
Yeah, that's another thing to look at too. That's a good point that you make. That a lot of these people, where they tell you they sent people to, when you look at the populations, it's high population of melanated people. So yeah, who did they send?
So on page 46, it skips to Samuel Smith wrote on 25th March 1746, asking permission to have letters from His Grace the Duke of Newcastle, Secretary of State, to the governors of the Leeward Islands, Barbados, Jamaica, Maryland, and Virginia, setting forth the powers given to the contractors over the rebels and recommending the contractors to the governors to these places. Evidently, the intended destinations of the transported prisoners. Mr. Sharp, solicitor to the Treasury, who was appealed to in the matter, said, unless my memory greatly fails me, letters of the same kind were wrote by my Lord Townsend to the governors of the plantations in 1715. Accordingly, letters were promised to the 26th March, on 26 March 1747, to be sent to the various governors named regarding the powers of the contractors, and stating that the prisoners were transported for the term of their natural lives, and that they must enter into indentures. If they refused to do so, they were to be treated as if they have had and sufficient military guard was to be placed over them. The first record of transportation in the rebellion was of 47 rebels shipped at Liverpool on 26 April 1746 for the plantation. These were transported to Montserrat in June, but 2 died on the passage.
You know what's interesting?
What's that?
Governor of the plantation, even tying back in that plantations are nothing but colonies
Yep.
and settlements.
Because he wrote to Virginia, he wrote to Maryland, Jamaica, Barbados, the Leeward Islands.
Colonies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Obviously.
And these were contracts. Which goes back, which I always found interesting when people say, well, there was no documentation. There was no internet back then. There was no telephone back then. You're just not going to show up on somebody's land and just dump somebody off and don't have any records. That's stupid. Especially when you have to pay a crew.
Record if they were getting paid. If they were putting people into indentured servitude to pay for their boat ride, you would have to keep a record. How would you know who owes who?
Mm-hmm. Excellent point.
And everybody that came over would have to have some form of paper or some form of identification. Some way, you had to have some way to identify them.
And I'm glad you said that, because it reminded me on trying to remember who said it in the chat. I think it was Golden Moon or Macadam one on the one tale that we got to know that people, it was hard to tell people apart. Why else would the Germans be going through asking people for papers? If you can separate people by the eyes, you wouldn't need papers to find out who was who when they were kicking people out.
Very good point. Extremely good point. Because if you think about it, the imagery that we have of like what people look like that were getting moved around in any given point in time, it comes most of us from movie references or for documentaries that they make, and then they do like the little fictional part of it where basically they're just giving imagery. Right, exactly. So of course they pick their actors and whatever image they want to give you down to complexion. That's exactly what they're going to keep promoting. But at the end of the day, we have to get our minds right to know what was going on, what the board was looking like before, what it got shuffled up to look like, and what's going on now. Otherwise, we remain lost in the sauce too.
Facts.
So there were letters sent to these places and from these places as early as 1715. It says, according to letters were promised on 26 March 1747 to be sent to the various governors named regarding the powers of the contractors, meaning someone had to take control of those contracts. Because the ship's captain is in control of those contracts now. Somebody needs to sign for them once he gets there or she gets there. Because we can't assume that all ships' captains were men. It says that the prisoners were transported for the term of their natural lives and that they must enter into indentures. I'm going to read that again.
So basically, being sent to America was the equivalent back then of a prison sentence. A life sentence.
Yeah.
Life. Mm-hmm.
The prisoners were transported for the term of their natural lives, and that they must enter into the indentures. If they refused to do so, they were to be treated as if they had, and a sufficient military guard was to be placed over them. So that means these individuals, and I think y'all talked about it on Tuesday or Wednesday when I wasn't here, that colonies were near forts. Where would you guard somebody? Not on a colony, but at a fort, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because military guards only have jurisdictions on military bases or on force. They don't have jurisdiction anywhere else.
Bingo. Pull out the details.
The first record of transportation in this rebellion was of 47 rebels shipped at Liverpool on 26 April 1746 for the plantations, aka colonies, aka settlements, aka states eventually. These were transported to the Montserrat in June, but 2 died on the passage.
So they got sentenced for their natural lives, which basically means they give up a natural life in exchange for what? Working on a plantation. How you know that's unnatural? That whole mindset's unnatural.
Ladarian Woods said it right. Penal colonies. Grand Rising, Ladarian Woods.
Mm-hmm. But you know what's so funny? Why my world history book ain't had this in it?
Because think about this. Slavs at this time were a group of people. Now you were either considered Slav was a group of people. So slavery didn't exist at this time. This is 1745, 1746. Now remember we looked up the etymology of slave and it said see Slav. The changing of Slav to slave did not happen until 1788. So slave as a term did not exist then. They were still referring to Slavs as people. So it was not interchangeable.
Makes total sense.
So you had terms of indentured servitude. They didn't break it down to being called slavery until later. Because of the Europeans that were coming over here, aka the Slavs.
Kind of ironic, right before 1790, that first federal census.
That's why
strategic plan.
That's why it's important to do timelines. Because if you don't know that, then everything gets conjoined and thrown awry. Doodle Vision says people get cut if you owe them $5. So you know they're going to keep record of who owes them a fantastic voyage. That's right.
Well said.
Especially if you are a political prisoner.
Come along and ride on a...
Always right on time. Yes, he's always.
I'm gonna need you to tune up that voice. Go drink some tea with some honey and do something.
Hey man, it's the rising. Leave me alone. Right, slippity slide. Thank you, Bones. Thank you.
Now that we got fake side up here.
Oh no.
Not to be confused with Lakeside. So then it goes on to read, because we're still reading the transcripts from that book. Where's the title of it? I just had it. Misplaced it. I'll give you the title in a second. The Ohio Player. Grand Rising, the Ohio Player. Is that
Grand Rising?
So we're on page 48. It says Barbara Cornell, 19, Perthshire, and she was thus described: red hair, clever. Number 143, Margaret Dykes, 22, no occupation, Lithgow. Is single, out for distinction of being well looking. Number 57, Isabel Hamilton, 50, comes from Malmesbury. Fortunately, all of them could sew, spin, and knit, useful qualifications for female colonists. Again, if you're going to make people indentured servants, you got to know what skills they have and how they're going to be used. Because during certain times of the year, you're not going to be able to plant and harvest, so you got to be able to do something else, right? Then it goes on to read an exact list and description of 150 rebel prisoners shipped at Liverpool on board the veteran John Ricky Master for the Leeward Islands, which were taken near Antigua the 28th of June, last by the diamond privateer Paul Marseille, commander, and carried into Martesico the 30th of June, 1747. So I'm gonna give you a screenshot of this list. Hold on, give me a second.
And when you do that, as you was reading it, it's kind of funny. What popped in my mind was watching them old movies where they show England and stuff, and the population messed up that they holding raffles to exile people.
I know, right? So let's see if I can load this up. Why it's not letting me load this up?
TMH, stop using those terms.
Stop
Live
using
only.
what terms? Oh,
Nothing.
my bad.
Trying to get us listed.
My bad. Okay, so hopefully y'all can see this. I'm gonna see if I can. There we go. What the? No. So here's a list of the transportation in the book. And you'll see the number, the name, the age, the profession, the county, the height, and then the remarks. Who didn't keep records?
Who that?
1746. Brown, smooth face. Black curled hair, strong made. Brown complexion, well made, ruddy. Alex Catanock, 17. Profession, he's a miller. He's from Badenoch. Stature, 5'5", black, ruddy. Dude equals ditto. Healthy, meaning brown, ruddy, well made, ruddy. Healthy. Dougal Campbell, 17, servant from Argyle, 5'5", brown, ditto. So these individuals had names, first and last, what their job skill set was, and their complexions.
And how tall they were.
Mm-hmm. So, can you explain to me how they say there was no record of these individuals that came over here on these ships?
Man. They ain't mean them records there. They were talking about other records. Yeah, that's what it is.
Now, out of a list of 31, there is only one up here on this one. Or two. No. Yeah, there's only one up here. Duncan McPherson, 36. Laborer. From Inverness. 5'6.5". Thin, pale, and sickly.
Duncan Penderhughes. Is that what you said? Duncan Penderhughes.
Grand Rising Indigenous American Leo. I never say your name right. Forgive me.
Doodoo Vision
made it.
What did the vision say?
Peace.
Moist hands. LOL.
Moist hands.
They are the worst. They are the worst.
Clammy.
Clammy hands. Oh,
Clammy hands. Shake on it, free.
Oh my
Shake
God,
on
moment. No, thank you.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good.
Pinky swear? No? Okay. All right.
No, none of that. I'm sorry. Go ahead, TMH. My apologies.
No, you good. So again, as you can see, there are physical descriptions of these individuals along with their heights and their names. So think about this. You got 30. Let's just say there was only 30 people on this ship. They had to have some type of identification and some papers with them, because majority of these people are all around the same height. Many of them are the same complexion. There had to be some type of paperwork that went with them that they had to have had to be identified, because everybody looked alike, right? I'm just saying. Here's another list. This is the other half of the list. Donald McGillis, age 18, laborer, Iverness. 5, they don't have his height. Black, shortened neck. I don't know what that means, but it says black. Donald McDonald. Redundant. 19, laborer, Iverness. 5, 8.5. Red hair, strong. Now, this is interesting because they said they have red hair, but they didn't say they were pale.
Right.
Could they have been tawny? I don't know.
Blake Griffin has red hair. Sinbad has red hair.
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm X had red hair.
Agnes McDonald, age 50, laborer, from Argyle, 5'4", black, ill looking, so she may have been sick or frail looking. Daniel M. Key, age 18, laborer, from Murray, 5'2.5", light hair, fair, well made.
What? Ooh. Who are these border guards? Goodness gracious.
So
go ahead. These
Things to make
descriptions are just interesting. Yeah, this is interesting.
So Mark McCormick, 16, laborer, Moydart, 5'3.5", good face, fair, straight. Probably talking about his hair.
Facts, Old Cliff said it sounds like the NFL combine.
Yes, indeed it
Y'all
does.
let me pull it.
Yeah, that's what they do,
I
ain't it?
don't play no more. I don't play no more.
I don't want to play no more.
That's crazy. Combines, pro-ams, nothing new under the sun.
Then you have Will Robertson, 17, laborer, from Perth, 5'5", brown, well made.
Danger.
I knew somebody was gonna do that. Thank you for catching that. Then you have John Stewart, 18, laborer, Aberdeen, 5'4.5", brown, well made, ruddy.
Why ain't none of these brown folks coming from Africa? I'm just saying though.
Right. And remember Benjamin Franklin's rant.
So this is actual proof. The book is actually, I sent the link to the book. So, if you got a problem, it ain't with me. I ain't write the book. James Lackey. He's a weaver. Edinburgh. They don't say 5. He's 5 feet. They don't say 5 feet what. It says black, straight. George Bain, laborer, from Aberdeen, 5'5.5", black, swarthy. What's the shirt say? He blue black? What are they saying? I don't get it. Anyway. Hector M. McGillis. He's a herder from Iverness. They just say he's over 5 feet. And it says black, and then the description says lusty. What does that mean?
No, it doesn't.
It says
Tall, dark, and handsome he was.
It's okay. Let me do this.
Come on.
Had to stay on lusting after the man.
Lusty.
Lusty.
He must have been checking out everybody doing the most.
Either that or
Not,
L's were M back in the day.
not musty, doodle. Lusty with an L.
Oh,
Lusty.
see, James was on the same page as me. You sure it wasn't a mistype? Misquote? Musty. Lusty?
Jay Susquehanna says John Mackey Esquire was working for the Queen Sophia, and she was inquiring into the characteristics of the royal court she was about to marry into.
Mm.
We need to have Jay come in when he has a chance and break that down for us.
Yeah, Jay got to get a
Just set
disclaimer.
up, Jay, so we can set something up. We should have disclaimer for Jay.
Yeah, Jay, it's still the Rising. That's not 9 p.m. This is a PG, well, I would say 13 show. No, PG show. It's PG, straight up.
Thank you, Pamela Hall. She says we'll look the word up, TMAC. Best chat ever.
Yes, indeed.
Pamela Hall, did you hear the announcement earlier? It was made specifically for you. No, it wasn't. It's made for everybody, but I was hoping you heard it. TMH, you might want to make that announcement again. You know what she thought. You know what she was trying to do.
Huh?
Okay, never mind. Pamela Hall, the chat on the on the website is working. I'll tell her, TMH. Don't worry. You can make that announcement again later. Pamela Hall is working. Just look over your shoulder, honey.
Oh my. This is interesting.
Yeah, exactly. See, Lusty. I'm not making it up. That's why I blew it up some more. Hopefully y'all can see it.
Wow.
And that was Hector M. McGillis. Okay, then you have John Scott, who's a herder from Perth, 5'3.5", light hair, fair-faced, slender.
Hold up, I got your definition. Lusty. As an adjective, healthy and strong, full of vigor. The other farms had lusty young sons to work the land. Synonyms: healthy, strong, fit, vigorous, robust, hale, hardy, energetic, vital, lively, bursting with good health, blooming in good condition, and fine. It basically meaning healthy, strong.
So I have some lusty plants.
That's what Pamela Hall said too. So thanks, Pamela. Appreciate you. Jay Susquehanna says, whenever you see Esquire, that is an agent of a royal. All right, cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not reading that Doodle Vision.
Why not?
Nope.
But it's crazy because with the definition of lusty, we don't use it that way at all.
Nope.
Today. Like it means something
that-
completely different.
That's the trick. Think about it.
Definition.
If you're using the word at a particular point in time, then 100 years later, that word is still being used but total definition. You have to, and we say it all the time, you have to use the definition from the period that you're reading from. Because if you don't, you're going to be confused for real.
Mm-hmm.
It went from meaning healthy, fit, strong to good looking.
So,
Well, that's the social definition of it.
yeah.
You know what? Y'all be lusty. All weekend be lusty.
It don't sound right, but it sound right, right?
Not yet. Not yet. Too soon.
Yeah, too soon. No, don't. Somebody come in on the tail end of the conversation like, be lusty. Well, I thought this was an Aboriginal channel.
But if it means healthy, vitality, the whole nine, again, I'm one of those who told you. So you say it means something else, and you gotta prove it. Hey, if it makes you feel uncomfortable for a little bit, you'll get over it. Gotta get everything back in track and on order. If that's what it means, that's what it means. But anyway, I digress.
Now you good. John Stewart, 18, laborer from Aberdeen, 5 3/4, brown, well-made, swarthy. So here's the thing that I'm finding interesting, and this I love the fact that realhistorywww.com provided sources, because what it does is it makes people go back and have to answer. If they did this in 1747, then you know they did it in the 1800s. So there is no excuse. Somebody know what the records are.
But it's like we also said before, some of these records you're not going to find in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, you have to look at French archives, Spanish archives, and you'll find a lot more of this information there.
America Leo told me to read the post. Make sure I read the post. The article he posted. We'll do. So as you can see,
I got it pulled up.
The majority of these people that are prisoners are brown, black, dark, ruddy, swarthy. Almost every complexion, almost every term that describes swarthy. There are maybe a few light-complected people sprinkled in. And they say pale-faced.
Could it be they say bacon because all the different shades of brown?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it sounds good to me.
Think about it. Your bacon just ain't one solid color brown. It's different hues of brown, different variations, marbleized.
Correct.
So, again, and lusty is always referred to the men, the young men. So, just wanted to
that makes sense.
Yeah, just wanted to share that with you guys and gals.
I'll pick my battles. I guess lusty goes in the same bag as gay. We'll leave it alone.
Well,
we know what you mean, but all right.
Talking about Tesla's fruit?
Say again.
Nothing.
Really?
Cliff said, young man, moist, lusty, bacon, noted.
Oh, man. It's amazing that this information is wrapped up in this history. Oh, man. Cannot make this stuff up.
What they always told you, want to keep something away from somebody, put it in the book. They got society so quick to want information right now, right now. You ain't finna get it right now. Out of books, you have to read, check the sources, go back and forth, pull out the useful information, separate the BS.
Right.
Jay was telling me that the pages that we're reading from are those pages that are coming from the secret esquires of John Mackey. Secret Inquiries of John Mackey Esquire.
Well, that's what's up. Bet that up, Jay.
So you know he been reading it. But it's on this page, realhistorywww.com. Again, shout out to the creators of this content because they definitely put in a lot of work. I always want to make sure we give credit to them. So now I'm reading about the Unification. So what we was looking at was an example of transportation. These individuals got transported to the Americas, some to Barbados and some to the Americas, with full descriptions of where they were from. None of it said Africa. Not Nan place. So
not a Nan.
Not a Nan.
Not a Nan.
Not a Nan. Okay. Unification. Efforts of common defense of the colonies, principally against shared threats from Indians, the French, and the Dutch. Whoa, 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 whoa. Let me
say, come again. What?
Where my sound? Come here.
Get your shit together.
They come here to the sound effect.
That's right, because it wouldn't happen. Efforts at common defense of the colonies, principally against shared threats from Indians, the French, and the Dutch. And they say this began as early as 1640s, when the Puritan colonies of New England formed a confederation to coordinate military and judicial matters. From the 1670s, several royal governors, notably Sir Edmund Andros, who at various times governed New York, New England, and Virginia, and Francis Nicholson governed Maryland, Virginia, Nova Scotia, and Carolina, proposed or attempted to implement means to coordinate defensive and offensive military matters. Andros successfully negotiated the Covenant Chain, a series of Indian treaties that brought relative calm to the frontiers of the Middle Colonies for many years. One event that reminded colonists of their shared identity as British subjects was the War of the Austrian Succession in 1740 through 1748 in Europe. This conflict spilled over into the colonies. How? Wait, stop. Remember when we talked about the wars and how it just didn't affect just one place, but it affected every place and Indians were being sent other places? Could this have anything to do with that? Because it says, and I repeat, that the colonies were reminded of their identity of British subjects during the War of the Austrian Succession in 1740 through 1748. And this was in Europe. It said the conflict spilled over into the colonies where it was known as King George's War. Remember that war?
Done.
The major battles took place in Europe, but American colonial troops fought the French and their Indian allies in New York. Stop.
The French and who? The French and who? Who is that again? What ally? What?
Hopefully y'all got your hard hats on, because there's some falling debris here.
Watch for the hook.
The major battles took place in Europe, but American colonial troops fought the French and their Indian allies in New York, New England, and Nova Scotia. At the Albany Congress of 1754, Benjamin Franklin proposed that the colonies be united by a grand council overseeing a common policy for defense, expansion, and Indian affairs. Shut the front door.
French and who affairs again? That's French and Indian affairs, right?
Yep.
Well,
when them British got here, that's what was going on when the British got here.
So if you need proof that the French were already here, here's your proof.
Yet again.
Because it reads in the beginning of this paragraph that the colonies had to set up a defense principally against shared threats from the Indians, the French, and the Dutch. And this began as early as 1640s. I'm gonna let that sink in.
Where's the African slaves?
They don't know.
1640. I mean,
think about it. You had French Huguenots in St. Augustine in 1550.
Yep.
French.
Yep. Their narrative is busted. It's done.
Got them.
It's done.
So the Austrian succession spilled over into the colonies. and it was known as King George's War. The major battles took place in Europe, but American colonial troops fought the French and their Indian allies in New York, New England, and Nova Scotia. 1754, Benjamin Franklin proposed that the colonies be united by a Grand Council overseeing a common policy for defense, expansion, and Indian affairs. While the plan was thwarted by colonial legislatures and King George II, it was an early indication that the British colonies of North America were headed towards unification. They had to unify. They were outnumbered. So they were being strategic. They were being strategically targeted. That's where all these Indian wars came from. So think about it. When did the unification happen? It took a while for that unification to happen. And in order for them to unite, they had to separate from Great Britain. Because they were territories. Each territory had its own governor, its own ruler that was sanctioned by Great Britain. At this time it was England. You couldn't unite without the permission of Great Britain. Too crazy. Let me pull this up. He says y'all play too much. Wasn't no French and Dutch here then. What you talking about, Bones and them? Oak Cliffs.
That's the record.
Marlon P says Pepe Le Pew all over the place.
Stinky situations.
So, I mean, now does this start to make sense to y'all about these wars and how they all spilled over and how no war was separate? So when they were doing ethnic cleansing and getting the money to pay for the war all at the same time. So then it goes on to read that Benjamin Franklin's plea for a purely albino white homeland. At about the same time in 1751, Benjamin Franklin, who was one of the founding fathers of the United States. Now look at all these attributes he has. A noted polymath. Franklin was a leading author, printer, political theorist, politician, postmaster, scientist, musician, inventor, satirist, civic activist, statesman, diplomat, and I'll put this in here, and Mason. He says Franklin, perhaps alarmed by the growing number of black people being imported as indentured servants from Europe and a growing number of Africans being imported as slaves, early on saw the potential for those black people taking power. Franklin himself was the grandson of a former indentured servant, Mary Morrow, and he experienced firsthand how it was possible to climb from those humble beginnings to a position of power. Thus, in 1751, he penned the following cautionary essay. But more importantly, Franklin's essay described a Europe and European populations which is completely at odds with what the albinos claim and teach. And this is what we had already read. It's perhaps the most important essay written by an American during the 18th century. Franklin's observations concerning the increase of mankind was one of the first serious studies of demography. In the early 19th century, it would serve as an inspiration for Thomas Malthus, 1766 to 1834, who based his grim law of population, that population would inevitably outstrip the food supply, on Franklin's calculations. But Franklin's argument was in fact quite different from Malthus' bleak prophecy. Franklin, like other Americans, as late as Lincoln, held a belief that no man in America needed to long remain a laborer for others. Despite the doubling of the population in every 20 years or so, America remained a land of opportunity where wages remained high and even slaves were expensive. what is perhaps the most striking about Franklin's essay today is his sophisticated use of social science data to convince the British ministry to alter its colonial policies. Particularly jarring, however, is Franklin's plea that America be maintained as an entirely Anglo-Saxon society. Read that again. It says, what is perhaps most striking about Franklin's essay today is his sophisticated use of social science to convince the British ministry to alter its colonial policies. Particularly jarring, however, is Franklin's plea that America be maintained as an entirely Anglo-Saxon society, meaning all white. Why y'all favorite rappers?
Wow.
Why y'all favorite rappers look white now?
Mm-hmm.
Why is everybody
What's
that's
going
supposed to be
on?
representing us from sports to what have you being forced and starting to look Matisse?
Doodoo Vision wanted you to mention his mother's name again.
Who's his mom?
Benjamin Franklin.
Oh, that's his mother's name. Okay. Mary Morrow. Hold on, let me. Yeah, Mary Morrow, spelled Morrill. Mary Morrow. Came from a single parent home. Who is Mary Morrow? Morrill. See, that's why we need Doodoo in here. I guess that's homework assignment for me to look up.
I found it.
Okay.
I'll post this in the chat real quick. This is Mary Morrill Folger was the maternal grandmother of Benjamin Franklin, a founding father of the United States. In Herman Melville's Moby Dick, she was cited as the ancestor of Folger's whalers.
Folgers do what?
Folger's whalers. Said Folger immigrated to Massachusetts Bay Colony from Norwich, England in 1635 with Reverend Hugh Peters and his family. She was an indentured servant, working for the family as a maid on the same ship as Peter Folger and his parents. Peter Folger paid Hugh Peters the sum of 20 shillings to pay off Mary's servitude, which he declared was the best appropriation of money he had ever made. She married Peter Folger in 1644. Yeah, I'll reread it. Peter Folger paid Hugh Peters the sum of 20 shillings to pay off Mary's servitude, which he declared was the best appropriation of money he had ever made. She married Peter Folger in 1644. They lived in Watertown, Massachusetts before moving in 1660 to Martha's Vineyard, where he was acquainted with the Mayhews. He was a strict teacher, surveyor, and translator for the Wampanoag people. Translator.
Stop. Don't you dare. Go back. Please reread that part.
He was a strict teacher, surveyor, and translator for the Wampanoag people.
Mm, mm, mm.
It goes on to state they had 9 children. 8 of their children were born on Martha's Vineyard. In 1663, they moved to Nantucket, where they were among the few people of European heritage. Their youngest daughter was that Abba, Abiah, 1667 to 1752, was born there. She married Boston candle maker Joseph Franklin, and they had a son, Benjamin Franklin. Her husband died in 1690. It was buried at the founder's burial ground on Nantucket. She died in 1704.
Okay, James. Let's go, bro. Let's go, bro. You dropping bombs.
Clicking on her mother real quick, see what they got on her. Abiah Folger in November 1689, Josiah Franklin married his second wife, Abiah Folger. In the Old South Church, Abiah of Nantucket, Massachusetts, was the daughter of Peter and Mary Morrell Folger. Peter Folger was a schoolmaster, a miller, and a surveyor. They said Abiah bore Joseph 10 children, John 1690, Peter 1692, Mary 1694, James 1697, Sarah 1699, Ebenezer 1701, Thomas 1703, Benjamin 1706, Lydia 1708, and James 1712.
So Benjamin Franklin can tie himself
back
to
a wife before her,
Indian
though.
roots.
But Josiah Franklin had a wife before her. Josiah Franklin married his first wife, Anne Child, in 1677, and they had 8 children: Lawrence, Elizabeth, Samuel, Hannah, Josiah Jr., Joseph II, and Anne. Upon moving to Boston, he took up the trade of tallow chandler and soap boiler because the trade he was born to was not in demand in New England. She died from complications, giving birth to Josiah II.
So apparently where he got his idea from keeping everything albino was from his father.
It goes on Benjamin Franklin and says Josiah insisted that each of his sons must learn a trade. He had great dreams of Benjamin becoming a minister, but Josiah could only afford to send his son to school for 2 years. As his young Benjamin loved to read, Josiah apprenticed him to his brother James, who was a printer. Later, Benjamin Franklin borrowed books from his friends and taught himself arithmetic, grammar, and philosophy. Benjamin, whose full name was Benjamin Josiah Franklin, had a very strong relationship with his father, who had a great influence on Benjamin, who wanted Benjamin to be a minister.
So Benjamin's father was dealing with the Indians. So those red people that he was talking about were his people. And how'd they get red? How'd they get red?
Y'all heard it.
But it goes back again. Think about it. Let's see. His first marriage, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 children. His second marriage, he had 10 children. That's 18 children. And like we said before, them 18 children, even though they got different mothers, are still brothers and sisters.
And because they were trying to keep everything albino or white, what do you think those children were doing?
Interbreeding back with each other. There's only one way to keep power if you're going by bloodline. There's only one way to forever keep power that way. Don't mix with nothing outside of your family. It's nasty, but that's the only way. Ew.
So what they started doing was continue to mix with their family, then mix with the Indians, and then mix the color out the Indians to create a red man.
Which, I mean, come on now. Cerebrally, that would have to have an effect. Like mentally, that would have to. I mean, obviously it has an effect. That whole sense of the warmongering, being bloodthirsty. I mean, literally and figuratively. That's not natural.
What's it
That
called?
come out the blue.
What's it called when you interbreed with your own relatives? What's that called?
Incest.
Let's look up the side effects of incest. Hold on. James, are you able to speak and help us with this, bro? Because he's on the panel. He's in the panel, y'all.
Peace, James.
Greetings to everyone. This is Bookman. I'm here for the rent. Keep going, because it's gonna get deeper. Keep going. I just want you to get her name and get everything that Benjamin Franklin was doing, and then we're gonna start to connect the dots. Go ahead, keep going.
So the question is where are we going from? You want to continue reading about Mary Morrow or Benjamin Franklin?
Mary Morrow. See the connection with these Nanticoke, Lele Lenape, Massawit, all these different names that they were given, Wabanaki. Then you're gonna start to see the connection with all of my times in DC. There are some that have always stated, I hope y'all can hear me. Some people have always stated that Benjamin Franklin and Benjamin Banneker were one and the same. Go ahead, continue.
Loud and clear.
All right. So you got any more information on Mary Morrow Bones? Let me see. Benjamin Franklin. Let's see.
Because she passed in 1704, so they don't have nothing else. They
Right,
just mentioned that in Moby Dick that she's mentioned in the Moby Dick book.
What?
Legacy. It states, Folger was referenced in defense of the whaling industry in Herman Melville's fictional Moby Dick. In it, Melville set up a series of objections to that industry, one of which is no good blood in their veins. The response is, they have something better than royal blood there. The grandmother of Benjamin Franklin was Mary Morrell, afterwards by marriage Mary Folger, one of the old settlers of Nantucket, and the ancestors to a long line of Folgers and harpooners, all kilt and kin to noble Benjamin, this day darting the barbed iron from one side of the world to the other.
All right, I put a link in the chat in reference to Benjamin Franklin, his apprenticeship, and his relationship with his father. So I'm going ahead and read from it. It's Benjamin Franklin history.org/early life. It says at 10, his father took him to the apprenticeship in his soap and candle making shop. The soap was located at Hanover and Union Streets. The building was torn down in 1858. Benjamin was in charge of cutting wicks for candles, filling molds, attending the soap, and running errands. His father intended for his son to inherit the business when he retired. However, Benjamin did not want to follow in his father's steps. He wanted to be a sailor. He was employed in his father's business for 2 years. In 1717, his brother James returned from England with a press and letters to set his printing business in Boston. To prevent Benjamin from becoming a seller, as his brother Josiah had, his father sent him to work with his brother. James, as an apprentice, he made him sign an indenture for his apprenticeship, which bound him until he turned 21. Only then could he... What?
Yep, he was bound. An apprenticeship at this time is the equivalent of an indentured servant. Your family didn't have the funds or resources to support you, send you to school, because remember, at this time it costs to go to school. They'll put you in an apprenticeship in some form of trade or something. They couldn't pay the people, so you working it off.
Grand Rising FTV. Hope everything's going well, bro. We up here reading about Benjamin Franklin. His father placed him in indentured servitude to keep him from joining the Navy or becoming a sailor. They were serious about these contracts.
Mm-hmm.
It says he made him sign an indenture for his apprenticeship, which bound him until he turned 21, and only then could he earn wages. His brother was abusive, partly because Benjamin showed talent. Confrontations were taken to his father, who usually ruled against James. In 1721, James Franklin founded the New England Courant, the second newspaper in America. The first was a Boston newsletter. Benjamin was in charge of setting the letters for the printer and sell newspapers door to door. This job did not satisfy him. He wanted to write, but knew his brother would object. One day he left an anonymous article under the door of the print house, signed under the pen name of Silas Dogood. From April to October 1722, he submitted 14 do-good letters, which were well received and published by the Courant. Do-good was a fictitious character, the widow of a country minister, an enemy to vice and friend to virtue. She abhorred arbitrary government and unlimited power. The New England Courant was a liberal newspaper publishing humorous articles and cartoons against the colonial government. One of the pieces, published on June 1722, offended the assembly, and James was jailed for 2 weeks for contempt, as he did not disclose the author. While James was in jail, Benjamin ran the business. His brother James got jailed for what somebody wrote in a newspaper. He got charged with contempt. So
What somebody wrote.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't he known for writing under like false pen name?
That's why he
Being a
started
ghostwriter?
writing under these false names. He had all these different
Mm.
names. Some of y'all, if you have younger ones, there was a show that used to come on, a cartoon called Liberty Kids. And the colored guy that was on there with all these kids, but he was a grown man, name was Moses. That's one of the pen names that Benjamin Franklin would use. He would write letters to himself under these different code names like Moses, Silas Dogood, all these different code names. Yeah, that's why.
It says the Courant was published until 1726 for the total of 255 issues. Conservative and puritanical Boston was no place for a publication like the Courant. James was the first fighter for journalistic freedom in America and the most important journalistic influence on Benjamin Franklin. James Franklin closed up his printing shop and moved to more liberal Rhode Island. When James was banned from printing the Courant, Benjamin was secretly discharged of his apprenticeship, so the newspapers were pretended to be printed by him. In 1723, at the age of 17, Benjamin took advantage of this clause and decided to leave his abusive brother and go to New York and search for work. He left Boston to New York, and with very little money in his pocket, unable to find work in New York, he proceeded to Philadelphia, where he found employment in the printing house of Samuel Keimer. He lodged in John Reed's house. Franklin eventually married his daughter Deborah Reed in 1730. Philadelphia was a city with a population of 2,500. It had been founded in 1682 and by 1720 had become an important trading center and a major port. The first immigrants were Quakers, followed by Mennonites, Jews, Catholics, and Anglicans, which called for more religious tolerance than Protestant Boston. Wait. The first immigrants were Quakers, followed by Mennonites, Jews, Catholics, and Anglicans, which called for more religious tolerance than Protestants, which basically goes back to what we've always talked about. The Catholic French were up north, and the Protestant French were down south. Through his brother-in-law, Robert Holmes, he met Sir William Keith, governor of Pennsylvania. He liked Franklin's company and usually took him to dine in his home. The governor offered him government business if he was to set up his own printing shop, with a recommendation letter from the governor, and after 7 months' absence, Franklin returned to Boston and asked his father for a loan. Back in Boston, his father declined to give him a loan. In his opinion, he was still too young to be trusted with the management of a business and a great amount of money. Josiah Franklin was proud of his son for obtaining such an important recommendation from a governor and created a good reputation in such a short period of time. He promised him that when he turned 21, he would help him financially. Franklin returned to Philadelphia, where he continued working for Samuel Keimer. During this time, he was courting Deborah Reed, the daughter of his landlady. Her mother refused to let him marry before Franklin's trip to England. And that's all they got with that. So let's see.
So question, did he actually do a lot of the things that he said he did, or did he just create fictional characters that gave him credit for the things that he supposedly did? I'm just saying, though.
Trying to see if I can find anything on his life in Philadelphia. Did we miss anything? Yeah, the only thing they say about his life in Philadelphia in Wiki is that he worked for several printing shops around town, but he was not satisfied by the immediate prospects. After a few months, he talks about his relationship with Sir William Keel to go to London, ostensibly to acquire the equipment necessary for establishing another newspaper in Philadelphia. Finding Keith's promise of backing the newspaper empty, Franklin worked as a typesetter in a printer shop in what is now the Church of St. Bartholomew the Great in the Smithville area of London. Following this, he returned to Philadelphia in 1726 with the help of Thomas Denham, a merchant who employed Franklin as a clerk, shopkeeper, bookkeeper in his business. Then it goes on to read 1727. Benjamin Franklin, then 21, credited the Junto, a group of like-minded aspiring artisans and tradesmen who hoped to improve themselves while they improved their community. The Junto was a discussion group for issues of the day. It subsequently gave rise to many organizations in Philadelphia. The Junto was modeled after English coffee houses that Franklin knew well and which had become the center of the spread of Enlightenment ideas in Britain. Reading was a great pastime of the Junto, but books were rare and expensive. The members created a library initially assembled from their own books after Franklin wrote, "A proposition was made by me that since our books were often referred to in our disquisitions upon the inquiries, it might be convenient for us to have them all together where we met, that upon occasion they might be consulted. And by thus clubbing our books to a common library," who is it? Hold on. All right, Kerry, what's going on, bro? And by thus clubbing our books to a common library, we should, while we'd like to keep them together, have each of us the advantage of using the books of all of the other members, which would be nearly as beneficial as if we owned the whole. This did not suffice. However, Franklin conceived the idea of a subscription library, which would pool the funds of the members to buy books for all to read. This was the birth of the Library Company of Philadelphia. Its charter was composed by Franklin in 1731. In 1732, Franklin hired the first American librarian, Louis Timothy. The Library Company is now a great scholarly and research library. Wow. This is the newspaper. Upon Denham's death, Franklin returned to his former trade. In 1728, Franklin had set up a printing house in a partnership with Hugh Meredith. The following year, he became the publisher of a newspaper called the Pennsylvania Gazette. The Gazette gave Franklin a forum for agitation about a variety of local reforms and initiatives through printed essays and observations. Over time, his commentary and his adroit cultivation of a positive image as an industrious and intellectual young man earned him a great deal of social respect. But even after Franklin had achieved fame as a scientist and statesman, he habitually signed his letters with the unpretentious B. Franklin printer. In 1732, Ben Franklin published the first German-language newspaper in America, Die Philadelphische Zeitung. Although it failed after only 1 year because 4 other newly found German papers quickly dominated the newspaper market, Franklin printed Moravian religious books in German. Franklin often visited Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, staying at the Moravian Sun Inn. In 1751, pamphlet on demographic growth and its implications for the colonies, he called the Pennsylvania Germans Palatine Boers, who could never acquire the complexion of the English settlers, and referred to blacks as tawnies, as weakening the social structure of the colonies. Although Franklin apparently reconsidered shortly thereafter, and the phrase were omitted from all later printings of the pamphlet, his views may have played a role in his political defeat in 1764. Stop right there.
My neck and my back.
So, he spoke German. German is a dialect of French, right? James?
Going all the way back to the Franks.
Mm-hmm.
Why do they not mention that he spoke German?
And he had close ties to the French. Remember, he was an ambassador to what country?
Yeah, he's an ambassador to France for 9 years.
Mm-hmm. He spent a lot of years there. Part of the Hellfire Club over there.
And he convinced Thomas Jefferson to take his second wife, Sally Hemings, over there. And contrary to popular belief, she was not a slave. Because when you go and look how she was treated over there in Europe, you will find out that she was treated as royalty. She was not a slave. Don't let the smooth taste fool you. But yeah, but his connection, going back to the Indian tribes, were with who? Which tribes? That's why I said keep following the breadcrumbs.
I'm trying to see if I can.
Wapanagi.
You said those Wapanagis.
Yep, Wapanaki, Lene, Wanapi, all of them are the same group of people. Massawet, and then you go back to King Philip's War, and you see how all of this ties in, and why he had an issue with all of these Germans, these swarthy people coming over here.
Greetings, everyone.
What's going on, Kerry Bay? How you doing, bros?
Hey, Gary.
Hey, Free, how you doing?
Holy my.
Uncle James, what's up? I got a question for you real quick.
Yes, sir.
All of these being the same people, is that through like intermarriage and you know the people coming over mixing with them, or were they originally all the same people from the beginning?
Yeah, they were originally all the same people. I said all of those that if you look up Lenape, the Nanticoke, Massawet, Wabanaki, all of them are the same people as far as being the same tribe. They were just given, depending on what section they lived in, were given different names, breaking down of a clan. It's like within a tribe, you have a clan, but they're the same people. Then you start to discover the same path or similar path. I'll say it this way: a parallel path that Benjamin Franklin took was a parallel path that Benjamin Banneker took.
I'm looking up the linear Lenape now.
And I know some people don't like this terminology, but the Lenape called themselves to this day Moors. They call Lenape Moors. Has nothing to do with Islam as far as religion. That's why I said you can be a Moor and not be a Muslim. You can be a Moor. You can be a Moor that's a Hebrew. You can be a Moor that's a Christian. You can be agnostic Moor. That has nothing to do with your religion or your faith.
I have to always remember that Moor is a descriptive term. And it also, in terms of if you use it as an action, it deals with sailing. So again, it's not like people from one land were the only ones who could sail on boats. Like, keep history straight. Keep dodging the lies.
But his granny was affiliated with what book? Brother Bones, you still there?
Yeah, I couldn't hear you.
His granny was affiliated with what book? She was mentioned in what book?
Moby Dick.
And all of them in that area were whalers. Mm-hmm. So you got to understand all of these different parables and folklores and all this stuff. There's truth in it. You got to keep digging, keep finding the breadcrumbs. And what was her surname, or what was her last name, her maiden name?
Well, Folger, once she got married before, hold on, I can pull it back up.
It was Morrill, Morrill. And in that last name, there's more, Morr.
There you go. Now you're going to find out that our boy, Ben Franklin, was passing.
What? Man.
You have a so-called Dutch man, so-called Quaker. Remember, he blended in with the Quakers. He was not originally a Quaker. Again, your Quakers are your Dutch. So he knew German, and then he broke down the Indian languages, remember? He knew all those languages, and he knew French. Come on, y'all stay with me.
Right, so he had to be an Indian that could pass.
And who has more aliases than Indian people? Think about all your hip-hop artists today. How many names they got? How many times P. Diddy, Hans Sean Diddy called him, changed his name?
AKA.
DBA.
Man, come on. David Corey, Franklin equals France land.
That's
Wow.
it. Frank.
Wow. Good case.
Yeah, what are they called? Frank. Yep.
This chat, I tell you.
Pamela Hall says, so are you saying Ben was light skinned? Yes, Ben was passing. He was a Matisse.
Na.
That's how he was able to go back and forth. He knew French, he knew German, and he spoke Indian languages. I gotta drop another bomb on that one. One more. One more.
And that's why he was so adamant about freedom of religion. Follow the breadcrumbs.
How do we miss that?
Mm. You needed the other pieces for this to be able to come into clear focus. Oh, wow.
Treat it as a puzzle.
Mm-hmm. Again, why a collective build is so important. You see the life that springs from it. I wasn't expecting that information, though. I gotta be real. I wasn't expecting it. Wow.
Okay. So let's go back over the King George's War. Let me do this. Man, dang it, James. Give me a second, y'all. So was that King William's? That was King George's War, right? Not King William's War.
The King George.
King George's War.
Who that?
Mr. TJ.
Grand Rising. Bones, what do you gotta do to unmute if you're calling in? What is the *6?
*6. Yes, if you're calling in, press *6.
And watch your language. Kid friendly show.
Mic check, mic check. Peace to the tribe. To Ab TV in the building. I just want to show some love to y'all. How y'all doing, man?
What's going on, bro?
All right, what it do, Ab TV?
Man, he coming in with that Barry White voice, scaring all the animals. What's going on, bro?
I ain't getting no bigger than that.
What's up, bro?
I'm gonna try.
Yeah, that's my I just got out the bed voice, you know what I'm saying, to get higher as I get to screaming and shit later on throughout the day.
Hey, now. Already.
Excuse me for my language. But I missed y'all, man. I'm glad to see y'all doing that work, man. I just wanted to commend y'all for continuing to keep pushing the line, man. Let y'all know I'm here with y'all, bro.
Well, we appreciate you, bro.
Yeah.
Glad to have you here, man.
Yeah. We got to get together on something one of these days. Been a minute.
Yeah, I've been waiting on somebody to put some work together. You know, I just be sitting in the cut, watching. But yeah, y'all been doing good. I've been keeping up with y'all, man, the last couple of days. Y'all been doing some nice little work, man.
Appreciate it. Just trying to do our part.
True. Don't let me interrupt though. I just wanted to say hello. If I got anything that I can add, I'll add. How do I mute this? The same way I unmuted it?
Yeah, *6.
No, you could just press mute on your phone and it'll mute you.
Okay.
Okay. True. My bad, y'all. I digress.
No, are you good?
You good?
TV, don't forget to check them past shows too, because we've been rocking.
Don't forget to do what now?
Check those past shows, those past episodes we've been doing.
Oh yeah. I got a lot of catching up to do. I ain't gonna lie. Got a lot of catching up to do, y'all. So bear with me.
It's all good, bro.
Peace and love.
All right, peace, bro. So the King George's War, 1744 through 1748, is the name given to the military operations in North America that formed part of the War of the Austrian Succession. It was the third of the 4 French and Indian Wars. It took place primarily in the British province of New York, Massachusetts Bay, which included Maine as well as Massachusetts at the time, New Hampshire, which included Vermont at the time, and Nova Scotia. Its most significant action was an expedition organized by Massachusetts Governor William Shirley that besieged and ultimately captured the French fortress of Louisbourg on Cape Breton Island in Nova Scotia in 1745 in French. It is known as the Troisième Guerre Intercoloniale or Third Intercolonial War. So they're saying this is known as the Third World War. That's interesting. The Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle ended the war in 1748 and restored Louisbourg to France, but failed to resolve any outstanding territorial issues. Now, here's something that's interesting. This happened in 1745, right? And it's talking about Nova Scotia, of course. And it says that William Shirley besieged and captured a French fortress in Louisbourg. Where's Louisbourg? It's in Nova Scotia. So, where's Nova Scotia? That's in Canada, right? Or right up?
Yeah.
Okay. So you hear about fortresses, and it goes back to what James and everybody been saying. France did not need to come over here and colonize because they were already familiar with the Indians. They were already intermarrying and mixing with those Indians. So they had a long-standing history. That's why when the English colonists came over here, the French were already here. They had already had left descendants. These people couldn't be called American Indians or Native Americans because America wasn't established at the time. The tribes were calling this area something different.
And a lot of them are known as Métis today.
So because of that fact, now you're looking at the Red Men tribes, the tribes that were here because of the French involvement with the Lenape and all of those different branches of those Haudenosaunee tribes of the north, which explains why you get down to late 1700s, early 1800s. They're already well mixed and they're passing like Benjamin Franklin.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at it this way, you got somebody like Benjamin Franklin that's passing for an albino or for let's just say a Caucasian. And he is bent on keeping that line as light as possible. So if that's the case, back in 1747, 1746, wouldn't that be the case today? Wouldn't there be many of our cousins, relatives, and family members that are bent on keeping these lines as light as possible because of their viewpoint, because of the way that they see things? Wouldn't these be the ones, could these be the people or the individuals that we allow to pass and we give a pass to that are leaving the back door open for our demise and our destruction? It's just a question I'm asking.
Yeah, the same ones that we allow to speak for us on our behalf, and we wonder why don't nothing get done.
Jay Susquehanna said it. He said, who did the U.S. send to France when they needed help? They sent Benjamin Franklin to France, and he was the one that got some of the laws in France overturned for the Huguenots.
And think about it. Who backed America to be a sovereign, independent nation? Who recognized them?
The French, France, old Ben Frank.
French.
So that ties up some loose ends as far as, or it should tie up some loose ends as far as how these tribes separated. You have the Native Americans, which were basically an offshoot of the French mixing with the Haudenosaunee. Because think about it, when the Revolutionary War was done, the Haudenosaunee basically disappeared, right?
Yep.
They basically became citizens of the United States, politicians and the like. They basically followed the path of Ben Franklin.
What was the rule? Kill the Indian, save the man. The Indian agent's job was to get the Indian to want to be more Europeanized. Ain't that the type of culture we live in now? A more Europeanized culture?
Mm-hmm. And if you pay attention to history, and again, this is not to incite anger, this is not to get anybody upset, but if you look at all the leaders, the majority of the leaders that led us, weren't they more of a lighter hue than a darker hue? Just ask. Look at some of the more prominent leaders that had large followings. Majority of them were very light in complexion. Hey, I could be wrong.
Could that be what caused the divide in our culture between, come on now, we know how this is. We went through the phases where dark skin and light skin of our own people didn't get along or treated each other differently. Could this be the remainder of that, from that? Just a thought.
Nothing new under the sun.
And, you know, we could be cruel to family members. We start joning and start joking. Some people can take that stuff a little personal and create a vendetta. EJ Copperton says, that's facts. I'm related to George Washington, and I have a whole side of red bone and high yellow cousins, and it's a direct lineage.
I remember the term dark skin ain't in, light skin ain't in.
Mm-hmm.
We lived through it.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember a time when we were, the darker complected of us would be joning on the light skinned people and be like, well, y'all don't disappear, y'all just go Latino. And then when it's cool to come back to our side, y'all black again. That's what we would say. So, I mean, it's something to think about.
But isn't that how the French went over there and Rwanda and did it? By nose and skin complexion?
Yeah.
To the point it been done so much, we even do it to ourselves now. Yeah. Look at the separation in our community. We're just emulating the European. They don't have to do it to us no more. We're doing it.
That's disgusting.
I mean, that was always the plan, right? To assume our identity and have us assume theirs.
Hook, line, and sinker.
That's disgusting, yo. You know better, you do better.
So James, is there something that we missed that you want us to cover? Is he still on? Check.
Oh, sorry, I'm here. I thought I unmuted myself, but I was talking and didn't do it. You notice when you look at Mary Morrow's background, it said that she came on a ship with the Folgers family, but there is no ties to anything else. She is the be all end all. There was nothing before her, no other record before her. Yes, she came over here as an indentured servant. Peter paid off, what he owed for her quote unquote freedom. So who were her people from England? Or was she already over here and was an indentured servant?
Wow. Perspective.
You might need to say that again, James, just so people can hear you. Say it one more again, please. Thank you, sir.
Yes, the Folgers that she married, not to be confused with coffee, that she married. It said that she was on the same ship. On the same ship with them. She came over here as an indentured servant. Where is the record of where she was born in England? You won't find it. It just says England. Where in England? Who was her mother? Because again, the English kept detailed records, as it was proven when you were reading the ship's logs of the people coming over here. Very detailed. Why is there no background on her? So was she already over here and became what they call the second wife, as we talked about before on previous shows? Something to think about. Go ahead, keep digging. It's gonna get better.
I'm sorry. I just want to know who y'all talking about exactly.
Benjamin Franklin, his grandmother.
Okay. All right. Cool.
That would make perfect sense. Because how else were they able to learn the Indian language to speak among the Indians? What was the middle person? What was the linkage for that? That would make perfect sense.
Yeah, so Antonio, what we're saying in layman's terms is that Benjamin Franklin's grandmother was a tribal member. She was an Indian. And his grandfather married her, and she was the interpreter. And if you go back and think about some of the bills that we did with these tribes, because there was a matrilineal society, the women were the ones that were the interpreters for the French, for the Dutch, and for the Germans, or the Palatines as they were called at that time. But when they mention her, they just say she was an indentured servant. But there is no proof of her ever existing in their records, or her even being on a ship, possibly. Who are her parents?
No, they just mention her name. They don't mention her parents, nothing.
And as detailed as Europeans are about who people are and who they belong, because with them it's all about royalty and bloodline, and so you don't mix with commoners. Her information should be very detailed. You should be able to trace her back to at least BC, if she's from over there. But there's no mention of where she comes from. Why? Especially as we're talking about Benjamin Franklin's mother. You could trace George Washington's family all the way back. Why not Ben Franklin? Was he not just as important as George Washington, if not more so? So
Ben Franklin moms look like a what we call a mestizo, mulatto.
Yeah, Matisse. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. That's what James was saying, is that he was passing. But because of his attitude towards the Germans, the swarthy Germans that were coming over here, he hated the darker skinned people. His goal was to mix out any form of melanin or brown complexion possible. That's the reason why he wanted to keep it Anglo-Saxon. He was passing as an Anglo-Saxon, but he wasn't.
Wait, so you telling me that Ben Franklin was what they try to portray Hitler to be? Is that what you're telling me, TMH?
I see how you're looking at that. Basically, in terms of like agenda, I would concur with that statement.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So was Hitler just redoing some work that was already laid forth, or we know how when we do the timelines of these things, like everything be going together. So I be wondering, like, I'm just throwing that out there. I digress.
No, because it's very, very interesting that you said that, because as I'm scrolling down past the documents, guess who we come up upon after looking at the definition of swarthiness, swarthy, tawny, alabaster, and olive, we get to, while the 30 Years' War against the Holy Roman Empire on the continent and the British civil wars in Britain during the 17th century were a principal impetus for insurgent Albanos to depopulate Europe of its native people, the natural kings were many. There were many other wars and conflicts which also contributed to the depopulation of blacks from Europe and into the Americas as slaves and indentured service. The Jacobite rebellions in Britain being of prominence. The method, of course, was ship. Typical is the voyages of the ship Jamaica Galley sailing from Rotterdam, Holland, to Cowes in England, then to Philadelphia. 7 February 1738, the ship carried a cargo of Palatine males, Electoral Palatine or County Palatine of the Rhine, Germany, a historic state of the Black Holy Roman Empire. The Immigrant Ships Transcripts Guild maintains a database on the internet with a list of ships and people transported. Now, here you go, Ab TV. Adolf Hitler, in his book Mein Kampf, 1925, often referenced the 30 Years' Wars as setting the tone for modern Germany. And he says, and I quote,
That's hilarious.
He says,
That's
and I
crazy.
quote, here Hitler states, without philosophical elaboration, the doctrine which some groups of German intellectuals accepted as a bridge across which the German's mind could pass to National Socialism. Civilization means that the application of reason to life, a process which scorned its greatest triumphs while Germany was struggling to emerge from the debris of the 30 Years' War. Goethe, Schiller, Kant, not to mention Lessing, the Wieland, are reflections of the Western mind rather than original creations of the German soul. Even the great medieval empire was based upon the triumph of Christianity. Therefore, the patriot prefers to seek out the life forces, the irrational impulses, which seem to be to him more characteristic of the German mind. This decision is sometimes couched in desperate phraseology when I hear the word culture, wrote Hans Joust, the first official Nazi playwright. So Hitler was doing exactly what Benjamin Franklin was doing. Remember, it all got started in Germany again. So it was a second cleansing of Germany.
Yo, I just seen something that was crazy. Was Benjamin Franklin's parents brothers and sisters? Am I tripping?
I don't know if his. I know his man. It's possible. I'm not gonna sit there and say it's not. I don't know.
I'm looking.
His parents wasn't, because remember, there's 18 of them. He had 2 wives.
Well, no, I was just looking at some information on Ben Franklin, and I type in Ben, and I get the picture of his mom, right? So I'm looking for her predecessors. Of course, they don't have no predecessors for her. But then it said sibling. So I type on sibling, and it gives me Josiah Franklin, which is his dad. It's Benjamin Franklin's dad.
Mm-hmm.
So
he had 18 children.
Josiah Franklin is his dad, and his mother's name was Abia Folger
Yeah, Bill Folgers, and her
Franklin.
mother is Mary Morrell or Mary Folgers.
Right. And so under on the list of her spouses, it says Josiah Franklin. So I click on Josiah Franklin, and it tells me about his dad. Right. So I'm confused. I'm gonna look into that.
Yeah, there's two Josiahs, because Josiah had a son that he named. Well, it's three. It's Josiah the father, Josiah the son, and it's Josiah the second.
Man, I thought you were gonna say Josiah the Holy Ghost. I was about to go off.
Well, which one was daddy and which one was his brother? Or you see what I'm saying? If she had a spouse and a sibling named Josiah, what's the coincidence in that?
I don't like coincidences. I don't believe in those.
Well, we know the royal families were into incest. That's how they kept it one bloodline.
Right, and it would go along with the narrative of trying to keep a so-called lineage pure. See, these they all come from the same little faction of people who has this understanding that they need to keep their lineage or their characteristics or their phenotypical characteristics pure from others, which seems like which was the predominant you know what I'm saying, genes across the planet, but they seem to have been different and wanted to keep their lineage pure for a specific reason and had some type of propaganda to implement going forth with that. And it's like, it's crazy when we talking about Benjamin Franklin and the French and the Franks and all of that shit is kind of blowing my mind right now. I digress though.
Well, we could do some more research on it and find out exactly if the coincidence is not just it's just the fact that she named her son after his dad, or you know, they might be one and the same, or her father is her husband, or anyway, or her father's a baby dad. Look, y'all confusing me. It's too early in the rising for this. Where we at? So, oh yeah, I was reading back the Real History www.com. Shout out to the creators of this content. If y'all haven't had a chance, please get a chance to read this. Real History www.com. So, let's go. Let's see. So it talks about Hitler's basically using the same thing and doing the same thing.
Mic check. Mic check.
I was looking into something real quick on Benjamin.
I'm sitting here talking. I'm on mute. My bad.
I was wondering what happened. I'm like, what the hell? I done sucked all the air out the room.
No. You just suck all the air out the room. I'm sitting here talking on mic. And also, please be mindful that this is a morning show. So language, please. Thank you, sir. It's all good. Let's see. So now below there's a picture. Let's see. It says, note, this is the transcription by Digital History of the University of Houston is accurate. Then we know that in 1751 only England, but not Ireland, Wales, and Scotland were at this time completely cleared of all blacks. So here's a picture of, it's a study of an Italian girl by German painter Franz Xavier Winterhalter, 1834. It says, as we can see, this portrait almost a century after Benjamin Franklin's 1751 essay, where he declared that all European peoples were of a swarthy complexion except the English and the Saxon. Europe was still full of swarthy complexion people, mulattoes. It says, but the constant killings and expulsions of European blacks as a result of the English Civil War in 1642 and the 30 Years' Wars in 1618 from 1618 to 1648 in continental Europe, which were really race wars, left few blacks in Europe for this type of person to mate with. The result has been an inexorable whitening of Europe's population through inbreeding and the associated shrinking of the European gene pool. Today, Europeans have the smallest genetic diversity of all humans and the greatest risk of inherited diseases. So, let me, I know, right? Let me show you this picture. So this is in 1834 after ethnic cleansing has been in existence for almost 100 years. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. My bad.
Hold on, run that back one more time. I missed that, Timmy.
Hold on. I was going to show the picture of the Italian German woman, because remember, they were doing ethnic cleansing. So they were killing off all the blacks. They were exporting them out. So this started in 1746. So this is a picture of an Italian girl by a German painter in 1834 in Germany. Right, so she would be considered a Métis. Don't she look like she could be an Indian?
Mm-hmm.
So this goes to speak to how dark the Europeans were. If you 100 years in and she's still looking like that. And how many swarthy blacks would you have to get rid of to still be producing somebody with black eyes, black hair, and still a tan? After over 90 years of ethnic cleansing. Because Germans look nothing like that today, right?
Yeah. The Europeans today look nothing like the European before the American Revolution. Two totally different sets of people.
So do we have a picture? I guess I could pull up a picture of what they look like today. Just curious.
Uh-oh.
What?
Pictures worth 1,000 words.
You know Trump people is German.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Fresh off the boat, if I might not add. They fresh off the boat.
They got them Franks again. Them Dutch, French, Spanish, whatever you want to call them.
Mm-hmm. Same family. CBAs.
Did anyone see that Trump had made some reference in talking about he was the king of the Jews? Anybody see that?
Stop it. Are you serious?
I'm gonna post
of the Hughes? He's king of the Hughes.
You're king of the Hughes. Them Huguenots.
Those Huguenots. Mm-mm-mm. The hubris. Interesting.
Try to give you a... So here's a picture of a German critic. Her name is Ursula von der Leyen. Display capture. So.
Yeah, Ohio player barbarians, and y'all around here cheering for Conan.
Right. So that's what Germans look like today.
How long did it take? How long did it take
for them to get to look like this?
Yeah,
probably about a good 100 years.
That's interesting. Seems like they've been working on it for a while. Let's just say that.
Remember, there were two ethnic cleansings, because remember it happened again, and it happened again under So they had to do it twice.
You know what's crazy?
What's that?
They did it more times than that. Because if you remember, like on the time machine, and we was in like the 1500s, where the Pope was saying, "Leave these indigenous people alone." Now, I'm wondering if he was not only talking about the Americas, but was talking about Europe as well.
Probably.
The problem was, as you start to study and realize, the Pope had no authority and no power over the Protestants.
No, these are German actors.
And that's definitely important to remember, because the last thing in the world I want to do is get lulled back into the narrative that we've been given what history was, according to Waldo, I'll say.
Yeah, because when the Pope got in trouble, who did the Pope run to? Who did the Pope keep running to get bailed out?
France.
The French king.
The
France.
French king. Mm-hmm.
And we got to remember, Napoleon kicked the Pope out. So what type of power he got again?
None.
True. So you see this dynamic of like two different factions trying to fight for power.
Protestants
and it's like
Christians.
Right. But it's like the Protestants are fueled by like this Illuminati type shit, because something is up with this German-French connection. It's something up with this, German-French connection, and how their ideologies are the same, and how they keep finding them in the same place, talking and sneaking, and you know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying.
You got to remember, because they're the same people. We might say German, we might say French, we might say Polish, but in the end, they all Franks.
Yep, they all come from the same place.
Now, francs was a term, it was currency at one time, and it still is in Switzerland, right?
Yeah, because the Swiss are francs.
And that's where they send all that money to, don't they?
Yep.
That's their bank right there. That's their bank.
You know this doing the purge of them doing the cleansing? It's kind of funny. At the same time they was pushing out the melanated people, at the same time they're running the Protestants out.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. But you're right.
Remember, John Wycliffe translated the Bible into Middle English in the 1300s, 300 some years before King James.
Yep.
True.
So, well, that makes sense, because when Benjamin Franklin went over to France and politics to get the Huguenots accepted back into France, and they were able to come back, and all they had to do was, they would have been restored. All they had to do was give the oath, and the Huguenots basically declined because they was in Louisiana, which was considered New France. When they turned them down, was it 1786 or 1787? And then in 1908 or 1903, the French they do the Louisiana Purchase.
Yeah, because they turned around and told them all to come home. Those who didn't listen, they sold the land they was living on.
That would make sense. And because it coincides with that time frame where the majority of the individuals, at least 95% of the individuals that were coming from over there, were swarthy, were tawny, were bacon, were fill in the blank. Yeah, it would only make sense that even the Huguenots were part of that group.
And plus, they needed their population back. You got to remember, with all the wars that was going on over there, they lost a lot of people. You got to remember, more than half of Ireland came here. More than half of the population came here. We talking about 15 million people between the Germans and the Irish.
Yeah, 1820 to 1870, yeah. Go ahead.
with all these people leaving, we know that these Europeans, yes, they reproduce, but they can't reproduce at the rate they fighting over there and having families. That's not going on. So after all this warring going on, they need a population back. Remember, they went bankrupt under Napoleon.
Exactly.
Well, on paper, let's rephrase that. They went bankrupt on paper, because bankruptcy does not mean you're broke. It just means the amount that I have to pay out is consolidated into one payment instead of multiple ones from multiple entities.
Right.
Interesting. Is James still here? Yeah, he's still here. James, is there anything else we missing? Anything we need to cover?
Oh, I'm still on the line. When you keep following the breadcrumbs, this is where it really gets interesting. What event? I know there were several events, but can anyone give me 3 major events that led up to the Revolutionary War?
Boston Tea Party.
Dang it, you took mine.
That's one.
Was that?
What was that, brother? No sell out?
I was gonna say the Boston Tea Party too. So that was
Yeah, because that's the one we all know.
But I want to say Bacon's Rebellion. When would that happen?
You had what?
I can't remember the timeline.
Wouldn't it be the French and Indian War, the Boston Tea Party, and we were talking about before the Revolutionary War, right? And the influx.
Somebody got killed. Somebody got killed.
Yeah, over on the other side, yeah.
Addicts.
What was that lady for free?
Addicts.
Christmas addicts.
I knew you weren't gonna let me down.
Woo! I got you.
And he was a part of what tribe?
It wasn't a Lady Nape, was it?
Oh yeah.
What?
So that's why they talk about it being the Boston Massacre. It was an assassination. That's why they try to say, oh yeah, he was a slave and he was a runaway slave. Why would that trigger a Revolutionary War? With the events of the Boston Tea Party and the Boston Massacre, what did they dress up as in the Bay?
Indians.
They dressed up so-called as Indians. Crispus Attucks was kicking it with 5 to 7 other men. Why don't you hear about those other men? Why do you only hear about Crispus Attucks? Crispus Attucks was a direct descendant of the King Philip.
What?
Follow the breadcrumbs. And where
You gotta be kidding.
where was Benjamin Bannock? What was Benjamin Franklin's family? Where were they living? Where were they residing most of the time?
In Pennsylvania, correct?
Before Pennsylvania, where were they residing? They were residing in Massachusetts, in what is today known as Martha's Vineyard. But prior to that, it was called Wampanoag, Nog for short.
Oh, that's right.
Yep. Remember, his grandfather and that was
That's true. That's true.
Indians through the grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see the relation. When that happened, here comes Benjamin Franklin. Woo, we need to go over to France because we need some money. It's not a coincidence that they use Crispus Attucks as the catalyst, as the jump off. Same folk. Y'all gonna learn today.
Oh my goodness. That's a whole nother twist on tribal wars. What in the world?
And for
But
y'all,
that's how you pull it. That's how you start a war.
Yo, this is crazy.
okay, so this is how. So this is a picture of Crispus Attucks. For those of y'all that don't know. There's no denying that he was a brother.
Now I'm reading about Crispus Attucks, and it says a biographer of the 19th century had drawn a connection between Attucks and John Attuck of Framingham, a Narragansett man who was hanged in Framingham in 1676 during King Philip's War.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Yeah, all those tribes, if you think about it, as James has always talked about, and as we all know, that those tribes are related. So you figure about all those, what they call, how did I see tribes, as the French call them, Iroquois, or Algonquin-speaking tribes. They are all related. They're all connected. They're all relatives. So yes, it wouldn't be surprising that he would be related to that individual.
No, the reason I was saying that is because when you read in the Treaty of Hartford, it was saying how we about to enslave one tribe and we about to come together to help the French and the other Europeans capture these different tribes that we was beefing with in order you don't remember the Treaty of Hartford?
Yeah, I remember.
They was saying we're gonna bring right. So I'm just drawing a correlation because that is actually the same time period.
Yeah.
That all of this was happening.
Yes, exactly. You're 100% accurate. That's why timelines are important.
Timelines. I couldn't get the mute button on.
Perspective. Another one of those days.
I think everybody's equipment is damaged. Go ahead, James. You gonna say something?
No, I was gonna say, think about this. You still see all the connection as to why would Benjamin Franklin's European grandfather, why was he teaching Indians in Indian territory, and then he would send them off to Indian school, aka Indian college
or Moorish schools?
Mm-hmm. Why was he sending? What was when you keep seeing a connection, and you look at the Lenle, Lenape, Nanticoke, Nog, Wampanoag, whatever they want to call themselves, Bannocky, same people, Massawit. You look at them today, and you can tell that they are a mixture of all the people that were living in that land. But you can still tell they are Indians today. Follow the breadcrumbs. Because if a so-called runaway slave gets killed on the street, so what? That's a dead slave. Nothing worse than a dead dog. Well, I can't say that because, people did go to prison over dog fighting and stuff, but that's another subject for another time. But why would that spark the Revolutionary War? Somebody help me out. Why would that spark the Revolutionary War? Because a so-called runaway slave, who was also, when you do more background on Crispus Attucks, it wasn't the fact that he was a runaway slave. It was the fact that he did his time. Because in war, remember, you lost the war, you became a servant to the side that won. And his deal was, I've done my time, and the one that was so-called my master that I was paying my debt off to didn't let me go. Then when you do more homework, on the trial on dealing with Crispus Attucks, they will tell you Crispus Attucks went back to his people, the Nanticoke, and was a whaler. Worked on the dock as a whaler. Think about it. I yield this cotton picking.
Not in the dock of the bay.
So they were up in Canada whaling and doing all that stuff, getting that blubber and making oil lamps and all that stuff, which is probably one of the reasons why the French were so enamored with those tribes, because they was looking to turn it into commerce, where the Indians were looking at survival and trade.
There you go. And they were using everything from that whale blubber to put in their hair to putting on as fighting the elements, putting it on, rubbing it on in their bodies, using the oil for the lamps to burn the lamps. They were using it all of it.
As a chapstick.
Why would Crispus Attucks again? Says he goes back, and I'll get the link. I'll find the link and I get it. I'm freestyling, but I don't want y'all to know I'm a freestyler, but I don't rap for free. E40, y'all remember that? So when I'm gonna put the link in the back chat so y'all can see on his trial, talking about he went back to his people, the Nanticoke, and was a whaler. That's why they couldn't find him. But why was he hanging out, and what sparked the Boston Massacre? What did he say to the British to get them so heated that they shot him and his entourage? Because again, he's royalty by Indian standards, and they used that as the catalyst to start this Revolutionary War, which got the French involved, because again, the French were all in that territory as well. That's why you have Massachusetts, that's French. Massachusetts, that's French. They were already there. It had already been blended in. So it was nothing for Benjamin Franklin to be part Nanticoke, Lenape, Wampanoag, to go over there to France, because they knew they were all the same bloodline. Think about it. You kill my cousin, I'm going to kill you. Kill my dog, I'm going to slay your cat. I yield the mic.
Wow.
Was still related. An Indian is an Indian.
Remember, y'all had already been over there having relations all up in Europe.
Quick question.
I'm sorry.
Now go ahead and say what you're gonna say, and I'll remember my point. Go ahead.
I was just saying, they think about all the Indians that were shipped over to England after the King Philip's War.
Wait a minute. That's right. You do one ethnic cleansing, you ship Indians back over there, they repopulate, so there has to be another cleansing.
Exactly. Where's Brother No Sellout? I know he's somewhere around kicking it. I know you can relate to this. Remember South Park, Eric Cartman, when he was trying to get rid of those hippies and the homeless, and all they were doing was just shipping them from one town to another. Remember, he got on the bus, California, young knows how to party. That's all they were doing. So you getting rid of some folk from over here because you want to take their land, you got to ship them somewhere else. So where did they go? They shipped them to England to start taking over Boston. So then you got to get rid of them again. Because they keep having relations and making babies.
Get on code.
We have a Crispus Attucks Theater here in Norfolk, Virginia.
So here's the question. This cordial invitation to Ghana, as we have these Latinos coming from the South. Do you feel, James, that if enough of us are not willing to go, that the 2020 census will be used as a means to force people to go? Because, again, they need us off this land so they can bring other people here to tax them, to get some more money. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, no doubt. Because, again, in order to get a new group of people in here, you've got to get rid of the people that were in the land originally. You got to get rid of them. And I'm going to say this, and like I say, the views expressed are those of Doodoo Vision, a.k.a. James Flames, a.k.a. Choctaw Jimmy, and not those of Autonomous Assembly, a.k.a. A2. Now that I put that disclaimer out there, you've been hearing somebody in the White House talking about a wall, because that was one of his platform bullet points. They wanted to build this wall. We know that was never going to happen because they're looking at the numbers. It's all about economics. You know how much money is sent back to Mexico from those that work on this side of that border?
Bingo.
So if you can get the people on the south side of the border to come north of the border, that money is no longer going south. It is being recycled here. So now you can tax those people because they are here. But you have to get rid of the bottom feeders, quote unquote, that are taking up the land and taking up the resources. You got to ship them somewhere else. Somebody else's problem. Eric Cartman, I yield the mic.
Something to think about.
So that's the reason why, because y'all know we're coming at this time of the show where we tell you the problem, now we got to start talking about the solution. That's the reason why the genealogy is so important. That's the reason why doing your census is so important. Because when they start sending out these people to start evacuating folks, they're not going to be evacuating the Indians. They're going to be evacuating the Negroes. Well, there ain't going to be no Negroes. They're going to be evacuating blacks and African Americans. So,
right.
So mess around and don't fill out that census if you want to. And your whole neighborhood be locked up and shipped out to Ghana. Keep playing if you want to. This ain't a game.
Ryan Thompson, but I.
And you know, when them alphabet boys come, they don't come knocking on the door. They come knocking the door down, and they use concussion grenades to disorient you. And they normally come in the morning, like 3, 4 in the morning.
What's wrong with getting your doors kicked in?
What's that? The sound when your hearing's going out.
Now look, I was in the military. I know what it's like to be sound asleep and be woken up out of your sleep with a bunch of loud noise. You are disoriented. You ain't got time to grab Jack. I'm here to tell you. But you ain't got to believe me. Just run a test. See what happens.
Jack better get himself. I'm grabbing Jack.
Jill either. I'm just saying.
Not a nail one of them.
So I say that to say that the census is important for resources and also to let those that need to know where a large group of us are located, let us know where they needed to go. And if y'all don't believe that the census is a detailed website, let me do this for y'all right quick. That census is no joke. The website You can pretty much find out anything you want on the census website. When it comes to population and predictions, hold on. Census.org or census.gov? No, census.gov.
Drop it like it's hot.
All I'm gonna say is this: start doing some inquiries in your neighborhood using this website, and you'll be surprised to find out how detailed it is to the home.
Mm-hmm.
Don't believe me? Do your own research, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
They know. They know.
Like just by looking on the front page of the census, you see that new residential sales, 635,000 new residential sales as of July 2019. It's down 12.8% from last year. Selected service revenue is up 1.3%. New residential construction, 1,191,000 housing starts, is down 4.0%. Business inventories to the tune of 2.3 billion. Basically the same. Think this census is a joke if you want to.
It seems like they had justification to bring in some more income.
They even got the population clock up here. USA population is 329,492,918. The world population is 7 billion, 7,593,318,128. Where do you think those numbers come from?
Space.
The final frontier. These are the voyages. No, let me stop.
Like, we know they done trumped up these numbers and shit. Like, maybe, I'm telling you, like, I know they have.
Well, the thing about it is the numbers are trumped up based on the fact that people don't put the information in. So they're going to be guessing. And what I've always suggested is don't just leave it to chance. Fill out the paper census. Get it notarized. Keep the official notarized copy. Send them a copy of the notarized copy. That way your family have access to it and they don't have to wait 70 years to see what you put down on your census. Because like I was saying, go ahead, Bounce.
Remember when we played the census video? What did it state? If you don't fill it out, they are going to fill it out for you. Again, if you don't fill it out, they are going to fill it out for you. So either way, the paperwork getting filled out, you gonna tell them who you are, or you gonna let them tell you who you is?
And
take your pick.
And I was saying, just again, I'm not saying trust them. Cover yourself. You can go to your bank and get your paperwork notarized for free, so you don't have to pay for it. But fill it out, get it notarized, and now you have a copy of it. And your children don't have to wait 70 years to see what you put. The 2020 census
that's crazy.
Right, the 2020 census is only going to be releasing 1950 data. Now, for those of you who are around my age, I'm 49. My father was born in 47. My mother was born in She was born in 50. Depending on where they pick it up at, if they do 50 in January, my mom's not going to be on that census. Because she wasn't born yet. She was born May 5th. The data for the census is normally turned in the middle of the year. So I'll have to wait
another 10 years.
Yeah, I'll have to wait another 10 years just to see what they have my mother put down. Even though we know, because they're no longer allowing the term Negro, she's going to be put down as black, even though her birth certificate says Negro. But that's the whole point. And so for those of you who have parents that are younger than mine, you're going to have to wait, 20 to 30 years. That's some BS. So
keeping you behind the 8 ball.
Exactly. So if we at least take our census paperwork and get it notarized and keep it, at least hand it down to our children, they will know. So if the documentation is not right, they'll be like, this ain't right. You got. They can demand it be fixed, because a notarized document is a document from a government official. It's an affidavit. It's something that they have to accept. That's law.
Binding.
So I'm not saying just go out willy-nilly and just trust them and just fill it out and hope they write it correctly. No, there are mechanisms in place that can make sure that it gets done. And then we do our due diligence to do that.
I'll give you one better.
Go ahead, James.
I'm sorry, I'll do you one better, because I know this is going to make some people mad. So just cut and paste the original disclaimer that I said earlier.
Okay.
You got a whole lot of people in the conscious community talking about science. And science does this and science does that. But you're negating the two most important elements of science that deal with your day-to-day operations. Social science and political science. Now, you can get up off your blessed assurance and stop being a keyboard warrior. You can fill out an application for the census online to become an enumerator and get paid about $20 an hour. Then you can fill out your own census form, and when you submit it, you know what you put on there. And you can fill out your neighbor's stuff if they don't fill it out. I just got you a job. I'm off this cotton picking my.
Ding ding. But that's what we got to do.
To me.
That's the difference. Instead of, it's changing that mindset of letting other people speak for us, letting other people do our work. At the end of the day, if it's supposed to represent me, shouldn't I see it through to the fullest? Make sure it got to the proper authorities. Make sure that what I put down on the paper is what they got on file. As sure as you depend on somebody else to do that, don't complain about the situation you end up in. We must be willing to start back doing this ourselves. Stop depending on somebody to do it for us.
That's like letting somebody go to the polls for you. What?
Right.
Nah, they'll handle it. They got it.
David Corey, just go to the census site online.
Yeah, TMH posted the link in the chat a little further up.
Before we leave out today, I wanted to read something that American Rican Leo sent in dealing with his family.
Go ahead, do it.
I'm gonna repost it in the chat. Give me like 30 seconds.
Yeah. Grand Rising, Lady J. Hope all is well. Yes, because at the end of the day, the goal is, we're not here just to tell you about the history. We're not here just to tell you what the problem is, so you can get upset. You can get upset and be mad and go rant. We're also going to give you some solutions. Give you some things that you can start to do today. And one of the things that James said was good. You can be hired as a census taker, and they are contractors, which basically means if you could set you up a business under that name, and then your business is responsible for taking the census
in your own neighborhoods. I got it pulled up. All right, this is from American Leo. It says Ezekiel Smith, the last Danish convict from the Danish West Indies. On September 15th, 1923, King Christian X pardoned a prisoner at the Horsens State Penitentiary. Pardons were not unusual, but this pardoned prisoner was the last convict in Denmark who had been sentenced in the Danish West Indies. It states the prisoner who, upon his pardon, was immediately deported and permanently banned from the realm was called Ezekiel Smith. Almost 20 years before, he was in court on St. Croix and convicted of killing his girlfriend, Consuela, from the plantation or from the colony Betty's Hope. He was given the punishment as prescribed in the Danish law of King Christian V of 1683, to lose one neck and have his head mounted on a stake. It goes on to say, avoided decapitation. They had already stopped decapitating even killers in the Danish West Indies. Thus, Ezekiel petitioned the king for a pardon to a life sentence instead. Ezekiel escaped decapitation, but was instead sentenced to life imprisonment. However, Ezekiel did not want to wait for that pardon. He picked the lock on his cell door. It was the Frederick's Fort with a nail and climbed over a fence to freedom. A warrant for his arrest was issued, but he was nowhere to be found, even with the promise of a reward of $20. It's a new prison sentence in Baltimore. Ezekiel had stolen a rowboat and went to sea with a bottle of water and 6 coconuts. 9 days later, he reached Puerto Rico. Here he worked for a while as a day laborer on the docks. Then Ezekiel signed on an American schooner bound for Baltimore. He was sent ashore and found a new girlfriend. It states this relationship was not exactly perfect either. Thus, Ezekiel ended up in prison in January 1908 in Baltimore. Convicted of a murderous attack on his girlfriend, Minnie Smith, in prison he was recognized as the notorious murderer of the St. Croix, and Ezekiel was extradited to Denmark and Horsens State Penitentiary. It states a pardon in Denmark and sent to Trinidad. The first years in prison, he was a restless prisoner who was punished on several occasions. In 1919, however, he had been on good behavior for so long that the warden of Horsens State Penitentiary recommended him for a pardon. But the now American West Indies would not take Ezekiel back under any circumstances. Upon transfer of the islands to the U.S. in 1917, Ezekiel no longer had an address on the island, nor had he requested to keep his Danish citizenship. Thus, his lengthy stay in prison had rendered him stateless, thus ending up costing him an additional 4 years in Horsens. I'm going to read this again. To transfer to the islands to the U.S. in 1917, Ezekiel no longer had an address on the island, nor had he requested to keep his Danish citizenship. Thus, his lengthy stay in prison had rendered him stateless. This ended up costing him an additional 4 years in Horsens. In 1923, however, a solution was found to put Ezekiel on a Polish schooner bound for Trinidad. And thus ends the story of Ezekiel. However, it should be noted that he originally was wanted under the name Ezekiel Smith, a.k.a. William Smith, a.k.a. Queen Mary's son. He was in fact the son of another prominent West Indian, the rebel leader Queen Mary, who in her day served several years at the women's prison, in Christianville, and that's the end of that article. Again, that was sent in from American Rican Leo, and that was dealing with his grandfather, who is Ezekiel Smith. Thank you for that bit of information. Again, appreciate it for you sharing your family story.
So that basically proves that if you weren't claimed by a state at that particular time, because remember we saw a newspaper article in Maryland and Virginia that if you were not a citizen of a certain state or you had no citizenship, they would put you in jail or they would ship you somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. And you see what it said, he was stateless, so it cost him another 4 years.
So my question is, if you're stateless and it cost you 4 years, wouldn't you be stateless when you got out?
You see how he got out? He didn't get out until they found some place to send him.
That's crazy.
Now transfer that same ideology to the mainlands. They keep you in. You get incarcerated by these black codes and all these easy laws to get jammed up. You do some time. When you get out now, technically you stateless.
Mm-hmm.
You're a ward of the state or a minority.
Mm-hmm. And if you didn't have the information or the knowledge to write back to your original country for your citizenship, you was left out in the cold, basically. Remember what we read again about the 14th Amendment stripping all of them of their titles. Don't a felony strip you of your titles?
Yep.
Sure does.
All right, good people. We didn't push past 11 o'clock.
It's Friday.
And I know people's equipment is damaged.
Yeah, I'm one of those. Need to turn in my hard hat for real, to the dumpster.
I know, right? So we're gonna I want to go ahead and thank everybody for being on the panel. I want to thank our special guest, Ab TV. Glad to have you back,
It
bro.
was a pleasure. It was a pleasure, man. I'll be
Custom,
around for sure.
Okay, good stuff. Glad to hear it. So we're gonna go ahead and do our salutations and get up out of here. Lady Free, as always, ladies first. What you got for the good people?
What a day. Well, let me second TMH. I definitely enjoyed today's build. Thank you very much, Ab TV. Appreciate your presence. Glad you caught that cab. The rest of the panel, you guys already know. Appreciate all that you do. All things seen and unseen. Your heart for the community is solid. And I really appreciate you for that. Chat, best chat ever. You guys are amazing. The thought that keeps coming to me after everything we've discussed this week is whether you descend from a king or a chief, whether you're from this land or from across the pond, your ancestors deserve the representation of you knowing who you are. Make everyone respect your existence. How can you do that? Do your genealogy. Rediscover who you are and why where you are is so important. Take responsibility by knowing how to be the best representation of your ancestors so that respect, order, balance, it can all be reestablished. It's a small minority of people that have made a mess of the world that we share. Their crimes, their perpetuations have been enumerated ad nauseum. We all know what the problem is. We can see through the numerous attempts to hide their hand. Their ultimate attempt is to erase all traces of your ancestor in order to create an entire slave race of people. Kill the Indian, save the man. Their agenda is clear and plain. It's clear. My question is, what is your response? Who are you? What can you do to help? How can you reestablish your people in time to be able to leave an inheritance for your children's children? All the provisions for the journey of restoration are right before you. I encourage you to rise up in power with purpose by building upon your roots. The time is now. Show the world why you exist. Show them who your ancestors were. Allow their voices to be heard through your life. We're still here. We never left. We never will. Know yourself. Speak your truth. The world is listening. Much love, everyone.
Thank you, Lady Free. So, let me see how we're going to do this. I'll go next. I want to... Yeah, I know. Hush, no sellout. I want to send a shout out to the new subscribers. I want to send a shout out to the individuals that are part of the chat that are the silent majority, that are taking this information, sharing it, and using it to help their communities and their families and their relatives. We know you're out there, so we always want to acknowledge you, because without you, there is no us. Again, shout out to the best channel on the planet. We appreciate you for keeping us on our toes, asking those hard questions, making us verify what we say, and always putting information in the forums and asking those tough questions. To the panel, as always, y'all make what I do so much easier, and I appreciate y'all more than you know. As the Toctonist Assembly goes, again, we're here to help you do your genealogy. We're here to provide information as we learn together, because we're no master teachers here. We're all learning and growing together. So everything that you provide, from the panel to the chat to those that are listening, we appreciate. And everything that we do is to help you tie into your tribes, or tie into your clans, or tie into your house, or whatever group that you tie into. So just remember that, and please take this information and use it to your benefit, and share it if possible. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and let No Sellout do what he do, and then if Carrie, if you're able to talk, you can go ahead and talk. Go ahead, No Sellout.
Appreciate it. Thank you, TMH. All right. Peace to everybody that showed up today and this week. Just like TMH said, anybody who's not in the chat, we appreciate your views and taking in some of this information. Still remember that y'all can email us with any questions, comments, concerns, and or corrections at autochtonousAssembly@gmail.com. Don't miss us, obviously, on the weekends, because we are active 24/7. So hit us in the forum, hit us in the email, however you can contact us. We're available. So yeah, y'all have a blessed weekend. Peace, y'all.
I'm here.
All right, go ahead, Carrie. What you got, bro?
Like always, the chat is the truth. The panel is the truth. It's always love, and I appreciate the hard work y'all putting in. I want to say that I'm glad I'm a part of it. Got to catch up on these shows. It's a lot of information. It's a lot to digest. It's a lot to catch up on. I've been busy in the field, and I unite with the system. Free. Definitely we need to get back to our families, our ancestry, and without doubt a contradiction, you are who your forefathers and mothers were. Like, you can't. There's no way around it. And we have to start moving like that, and we have to move towards redeveloping that. And yeah, I agree 110% with that. Let's work towards building ourselves back up, not running from anything. And with that, say peace and love to everybody. Y'all enjoy y'all weekend. See y'all next week. Next week.
James Flames, Doodle Vision, Choctaw Jimmy. You've been dropping boulders, bricks, all type of stuff from the scaffolding. So go ahead and do what you do. Leave some for the good people to chew on this weekend until we come back on. We'll be here this weekend. So just do what you do. I'll relinquish the mic.
Yeah, I got a new code name. It's Wreck-It Ralph. I like to tear up stuff, bad stuff. So keep your heads covered. Oh man, what can I say? Lady Free, once again, it's always good when you're able to join some of us knuckleheads on the panel. I'm glad to be back. It wasn't even an emergency. I'll share with y'all when we go off air what happened. Let's just say when you got young ones and they wait to the last minute to tell you that you need something, that's all I'm gonna say.
He looked like he was looking right at somebody. Said that one.
Right.
Directly at him.
Don't wait to the last minute. You gonna tell me after the fact that you needed it yesterday. Anyway, man, to the gentleman on the panel, I appreciate y'all. For the App TV, thank you for coming. Wow, since we've heard you, so I'm glad to see that you are back and in full effect. To those in the chat, I can't see y'all anymore because I'm mobile here. But man, I appreciate y'all more than you ever know. Keep dropping those nuggets. Jay Susquehanna Radio. Man, I'm telling you, you don't get banned from other chats, man. You can't keep dropping science like that. You can't keep doing it, man. But that's another subject for another time. I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna keep it professional today. I'm gonna do it today. I just want y'all. I know to be back over the weekend, but just again, Keep checking those nuggets. And then ask yourself, why Benjamin Franklin and Benjamin Banneker ran in the same circles, but they never met? Unless Clark Kent is Superman, is Batman Bruce Wayne? They both were astronomers. Keep thinking. Both were astronomers. Both dealt with, they were not formally, quote unquote, educated. Grew up in the same area. Dropped some almanacs. Because you know you got Poor Richard's almanac. And you got Benjamin Banneker's almanac. Just keep thinking about it. Keep dropping those breadcrumbs. And as we said earlier, just keep thinking. Don't stop thinking. And don't let the smooth taste fool you. And remember, in order to get a new, fresh crop of people in and run the same game, I'm going to say this. I know I said I was going to be good, but I can't because it's Friday. It's going to get me in trouble. You know when you hustle people, because my grandmother always told me, said, baby, don't be a hustler. Because you got to come up with a new hustle every day. What she meant by hustle, she wasn't talking about like you hustling out there doing what you got to do with grinding. She was talking about scamming. So now I'm going to put in today's terminology. Baby, don't go out there and be a scammer. Because you got to come up with a new scam every day. Because you can't scam the same folk over and over. And since you can't scam the same folk over and over, either you have to move around or you have to move the people that you scam around. Y'all think about that. 2026 is coming up. Everybody talking about I'm African American and I'm going to Ghana. Better do some research because Ghana's money's gone. Somebody done robbed the bank in Ghana. So you go ahead and go to Ghana if you want to. Go ahead and go to another country if you want to, because that's their way of saying we can't scam y'all anymore because you're using the internet to connect with people all over this landmass, and more people are coming back and remembering, thank you, Lady Free, remembering who you are, and remember what your grandparents used to tell you, hey, we're Indian. And anybody tell you that they're not an Indian, I'm not saying don't build with them. I'm saying don't tell them all the things that you know. Brother TMH, I know you had already said what you're going to say, but what he used to say that some things are what they public. Now, break it down for me again. Can you say that and then I'll come right back?
Hold on.
He on double mute.
Yeah, I'm going to stop it. I said you have those things that are secret. Those are things that only a very few people would know. That you're not going to tell anybody because it's for those specific groups of individuals. You have those things that are sacred, which your organizational group would know. Because you don't want to share it because it could be a detriment to that organization. You know, like a trust is sacred. You know, you loaning a good friend some money because you need to help their family out. That would be a secret because you ain't trying to embarrass somebody. And then you have those things that are shared. Things you share are things that anybody can benefit from because you're providing proof. So know the difference between a secret, what's sacred, and what needs to be shared. Is that what you're talking about, James?
Yes, sir. That's it exactly. Stop sharing secrets and things that are sacred with those that will tell you they are African American. Not telling you to be their friend. Not telling you to do that at all. I'm simply saying when someone has made a declaration and they have told you, I'm African American and so are you, although you have proven to them time after time after time that you were Indian and you would never shift over here and especially chain 5,000 strong to the belly of a ship. Stop entertaining them. Please don't feed the bears They tell you that out there when you go to the wilderness.
Mm-hmm.
Let Smokey the Bear tell you, don't feed the bears, and only you can prevent forest fires. I'm off this cotton picking mic. I gotta go.
Cue it up to you, Mitch. Cue it up.
One time for the body.
A few explosions for that.
I gave him 3 for it. Again, I wanted to say peace to App TV for dropping in. Thanks, bro. Appreciate you for building with us. And now we're just going to turn it over to Bones H. McCoy. And he can take us on up out of here. And let everybody get on with their day. Go ahead, Bones. Take it away, boss.
All right. Want to thank everybody for coming out today. Want to thank the panel, the chat, everyone listening. Without y'all, none of this would be possible. And also, again, I'm going to say that the information that we're bringing does no one no good if we don't apply it. So let's make sure that we use it. And also, tomorrow we'll be coming back with a special build dealing with pop culture. We'll post the time and information, but it'll be exclusively on the A2 website. And over the weekend, if you miss us, you can also catch some of the old episodes on Ain't TV, which is showing 24/7. Again, it's our television network. It does us no good if we don't use it. So those of us who are interested in having programs or making programs for television, contact us and we can take it from there. So on that note, it's always fun when we kick it with the relatives. No place we'd rather be. And until the next Rising Show, everyone have a blessed day and peace.
Peace and love, everyone.
Peace, y'all.